Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, Muggles and Yamaros of all ages. My name is Drinksglue, and this afternoon we have a 100% Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide run featuring Hefe, featuring Nobody War, and allow me the pleasure of introducing our commentary team today, Arusta and Numbers. Arusta, how you doing today, my friend?
I am doing very well, thank you for asking. So, for anyone who's not familiar, this is Final Fantasy VI Randomizer, the Worlds Collide Randomizer. So, if anybody's familiar with the original Final Fantasy VI, also known as Final Fantasy III, if you were a Super Nintendo fan back in the day, this effectively is randomizer where it takes some of the characters and then basically they can be anywhere. So the checks here are defined by what characters you have. So in essence, where an event related to that character happened in the original game. For example, if you remember that Terra started off by fighting Welk at the very start of the game. If you happen to have Terra in your party, you can go kill Welk at the start and you will be rewarded with an item, a character, or an Esper. And the goal for this one is it's 100% race. So the goal is to get all the characters, all the Espers, all the checks. And my co-commentator today, Numbers, has some good information about this. Numbers, can you tell us a little bit about this seed?
Absolutely. So we have 5 requirements to get to the final Kefka fight. So our requirements is to find all 14 characters, all 27 espers, 8 dragons. You have to
Chat. It's been a
beat
while.
the Tower Cell Beast, complete 62 checks. And we also have an automatic unlock for the KT skip. So instead of having to go through the entire tower, we can go straight to those buttons at the end. Another couple other objectives we have in order to get all 8 sword techs, finish up Domo Dream, get the Magitech upgrade, which if you guys don't know what the Magitech is, we actually get the Magitech command for one of the characters, and they'll be able to use that. To get the Illumina, we have Let Sid Die, or you can save Sid and get an imp set, dried meat through Help Injured Lab, and an Illumina at Perform an Opera. So we get to see these two race and see how these things go.
Yep, and then a couple other items which are unique to the seed. So there's actually showing on Hefe's side right now the movement B dash. So basically, if you hold down B, you can go extra speed. There's the sprint shoes, and then B actually makes you go even faster than that. So they're going to be running full speed. There's also Y NPC remove, which basically, if you run up to an NPC, you hit Y, they disappear. So you can sort of go into places you normally couldn't get to. And as well, if you have a townsperson who decides to just stand in your way, you push them out and say, I want to go into that shop. You were standing in my way. So it's fun there too as well.
I haven't got a chance to look at all of the flags, but it looks like it's pretty much our standard. No, we've changed our stats too. So we've got some other things that changes stats and things such as the stats and starting levels. And this is a pretty close to standard. What's that? Oh, I gotta quit the race room. Yep, sorry.
Well, while Numbers does that, one other thing that's being mentioned in the race room is that they have a 5% chance that there is a monster in a box. So if you open any random chest, there's a 5% chance that something in there wants to punch you in the face and you have to fight it off. Typically, in vanilla Final Fantasy VI, in the most normal Worlds Collide settings, there are only, I believe, 11 different chests that have monsters in a box, and they are specific chests, so everybody knows where they are. Here, it can be anywhere, and they have a gentleman's or Gentle Moogle's agreement to open about 120 or more chests, just so that this really lives into the 100% category. So we will probably be seeing a bunch of those monster in a boxes, and we'll see, because some of the chests, if you get into a fight you can't handle, just could be a rough time. So always an interesting seed there. All right, so we are just informed that they have the go ahead, so they will be starting here in just a sec. We are starting the countdown now. And to answer a question in chat, so we talked about having every chest making this 100%, but there are a lot of chests in remote areas and some that can even be missed. So
Yeah, there's a lot of secret chests, and also including in those chests are like secret spots, like on Phantom Train and in Sealed Cave. So both of those have spots where you just got to go on the random spots and just click A in order to get those things. So those can be missed a lot.
Yeah, some interesting characters start here. So Terra and Edgar. So Terra, as you see on Hefe's side, is generally considered one of the very best. Ooh, starting with a monster in a box. Terra is considered one of the best characters to start with because the area where Hefe is now has a bunch of chests, a bunch of free equipment you can pick up. Meanwhile, Nobody War is going to show us off the opera.
I really like that play on Nobody War's side because we know both characters can use an Illumina. Actually, I wonder what the equipment pool is if we have 100% or not on. Oh, I closed it out. That's all right. I guess we'll find out, huh?
Yeah, and an interesting thing, if you noted there, Hefe had character get turned to stone, but does not have any way to fix Terra, so she's just going to be sitting there petrified, which means she's not getting any experience from these fights, so that's not great.
Well, hopefully he finds some stuff pretty soon. With that 5%, I mean, you'd think it wouldn't be a whole lot, but it can get pretty. There's another one. It can get kind of rough. He's going to be doing a lot of running, I bet.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, if you played the vanilla game, you're probably looking at the enemies Hefe is fighting and thinking, wait, these are really easy enemies? Because they actually kind of are. But when you're level 3, there is no such thing as an easy enemy. Because they're just level 3 with the default equipment, and Edgar, being an early game character, has very bad default equipment. So probably see Hefe do a bunch of running if they run into monsters here.
So Hefe's already decided to leave out of there and save. That's actually a really smart move. I think I would have done the same thing.
Yeah, especially since Hefe is going to want to still open chests in this cave to the sealed vault here, or cave to the sealed cave here, because there's a lot of chests, a lot of potential equipment here. But with that 5% monster in a box, which right now we're looking at 4 out of 11 chests, something like that. So not great odds. That 5% is overestimated here.
Yeah, this would be a great fight later on. Maybe still some Minervas, but unfortunately, it's not a good one early.
Yeah, and the other thing is there are items such as smoke bombs and warp stones to let you just bail out of fights for free. However, since Hefe has not visited any shops yet, does not have any of those. So basically, every time you fight a monster in a box, you have to run away manually, which, as you can see, takes a couple seconds and also puts you at risk of the monster causing trouble while you're trying to run.
I wonder if Hefe's just trying to get his get that chest count out of the way early, so he's not thinking about it later. Since they did have the gentleman's agreement for 120, they decided, I believe it was.
Yes, there's that, but then there's also the fact that this is an area where there's a lot of chests very close together. So if you're going to load up on chests, like, this is a very good place to do it.
Speaking of those special areas, Hefe just showed us that, and he got lucky and picked up. Oh, we have. So that becomes that's right. So something interesting in those little spots. That's not necessarily a remedy. It may have said remedy, but it shows up as a soft. And I think the other one is a water edge, but I think it's actually a remedy. So it's something weird to do with the coding with the randomizer, if I remember right. I may be wrong on that, but I don't usually pick up those very often.
Yeah, so just to clarify, those items I believe actually are typically not randomized, even though the randomizer randomizes chests, because those are actually set differently. So that's actually one of those as well, further in the dungeon, is 2,000 gold. So that's something where if you're playing in a seed like where money is tight, which can be depending on the seed settings, those are the kind of things where it's good to know that, oh, this is going to be a soft, or this is going to be 2,000 gold.
Yeah, it'll definitely help out whenever, especially. So it's interesting that you said that. We've had some seed of the weeks or some presets back. Oh, I mean years ago, obviously. But it was actually set up to where your goal was to find these in order to be able to buy anything out of the shop. You started with zero GP. You couldn't earn GP. You couldn't sell things. You had to know where to go to get those in order to have any money to buy anything. And I think every shop item was only like 1 GP. So whenever you found that, you could have all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And then one thing to note, hooking up a Mega Elixir there on Hefe's side. One thing to note, if you see how Hefe's speed and then compare to Nobody War when they were walking out, you will see Nobody War is moving a little quicker. I think there is, as we mentioned, a setting called B dash where you hold B and then you run at extra fast rather than just fast. I don't know if Hefe has forgotten about that setting or if they're intentionally trying to run a little slower here just to avoid bonking into walls, but you can see here Nobody War is flying.
Yeah, I believe he's forgot about that. I can't tell you how many times I've had B dash and then 10 minutes left of the game, I realize, hey, I forgot about B dash.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really saves a lot of time too, even on just a regular. Even if you put B dash into like a ultra sleep seed, you're talking about saving 15 to 20 minutes, I think, at times.
Yeah, because B dash is not a common setting, which it makes sense why, if Hefe did indeed forget it, why they did forget it, because it's just not a setting we use very often. Meanwhile, Hefe in the Imperial camp like that, if you talk to someone, they throw you right out. So if you were already planning on taking a fight, that is an easy way to get out quicker, saves you a little bit of walking time, and gets you the fight and a little bit of experience.
So I wonder what Hefe's thinking now. I wonder if he's going to go straight into Ancient Castle after this, or if he's going to find another check to do.
So one thing that Hefe is doing right now is setting his party. Hefe has not actually gone to a store yet, but putting Edgar in front, only in the World of Ruin South Figaro, not the World of Balance South Figaro, gets you a 50% discount on all stuff. There was a Super Ball, which is a nice item to have. Plus, there's a lot of chests here. So Hefe might be looking to buy something, see what's available, because that 50% discount can really save you some money if you're looking for some of the common items you might be looking for at this stage are earrings, which give you a 25% boost to your magic damage, and you can wear two, so they actually stack. Maybe some nice equipment. We'll see what they buy. And as well, one thing I've been negligent in not mentioning thus far is that my name is Roosta, my co-commentator is Numbers.js. However, we've got some very important people behind the scenes. Neruliana, who is doing our tracking and keeping us in line here, clicking all the buttons. And then Drinks Glue, who is the dog who is restreaming behind. And then thank you all for our viewership as well. So that's our team for today. If anyone here is not familiar with Worlds Collide and wants to is liking what they're seeing, you can go to the FF6 Worlds Collide website, and we have seeds there. We have a Discord with all sorts of guides and helps for newer runners, a beginner's house channel of our Discord where everybody is absolutely willing to help you learn how to play the game, mentoring programs, all that really helpful to bring in newbies to the game if you're new and liking what you're seeing here.
So I really love the fact that what they're doing with this 100, it really showcases the diversity inside not only Worlds Collide but Final Fantasy VI. There was that Y remove that we were talking about earlier that Hefe just used, and everything that they've done with this randomizer to just, I mean, you can the opportunities and the things that can be done is just endless with this game. And I love the fact that they've decided to do this 100% for Stand Up Against Cancer, the Gamers for Hope Foundation. That way we can just showcase everything on this. We're going to see I don't think it's every possible command, but out of all the characters, we're going to see a lot of the commands that can be used. And Hefe just remembered that he has B dash. I bet he's happy he just remembered that as well. So
yeah, and he also found a Valiant Knife there, which is Valiant Knife is a weapon which is normally only equipable by lock, but under these settings and in the randomizer can be equipped by, I think it's a 50%, the default users plus an extra 50% chance. And so Valiant Knife actually gives you the damage. It's a nice strong weapon, but it also, if your HP is low, so for example, if you're walking around with, I don't know, 50 out of 10,000 HP late in the seed or something like that, you do a boatload of extra damage based on how low your HP is. So it's very nice. Kind of dangerous because you have to walk around with low HP, but very strong offense.
yep. As Drinks Glue just mentioned in the chat, offering VK, yeah, it's seed's over. And that's something that Hefe was talking about earlier. I mean, once you get your offense in the beginning, you get that offense, you get the right offense, it's game on, and you can just start plowing through your seed, through the seed pretty quick.
Yeah, meanwhile, Nobody War looking like they're going to stop here. So this is a check called the Zen Thief. If you remember Vanilla, you could buy an Esper from this thief in the corner. And so it did mention if you saw this glowing stone, so that is an Esper that you can buy. It is a check, so they'll have to do it either way. The one thing for the randomizer, just similar to Vanilla, is that both World of Balance and World of Rune, you can buy it in either spot, and they have different prices. So at 50,000, probably Nobody War will pick that up at some future time in the World of Rune, and it will likely be cheaper.
So I did get this seed brought back up, and it looks like our equipment possibilities is equipment original plus 45%. So that's pretty good.
Absolutely.
Shops are shuffle plus random 40%. Prices are 50 to 150%, sell fraction of half. So there's no rods. We can't get elemental shields. There's no Super Bowls and no experience eggs and no Illuminas.
Yeah, but with the number of checks they're going to be doing, I would be surprised if they don't already have plenty of stuff, just because there are a total of 62 checks in the game that they will be required to do, but there are only like 14 characters, I believe, and something like 20 something
27.
Espers, 27 Espers. So there's a lot of dead checks in there, and the dead checks will provide you with some good equipment. So at some point they will get plenty of stuff.
Oh, and we also have to do all 8 dragons and the Cell Beast.
Yes, and the dragons and the Cell Beast are all guaranteed to provide a high tier item.
Yeah, I mean, equipment's not going to be an issue, but starting out with that VK offering is just going to make things a lot easier. And nobody wants to see this on Leet River. Level magic is never any fun.
Yeah, the thing about the level magics is that they cast damaging and slow spells. They also don't provide any experience, so there's really no point in wanting to fight them. Meanwhile, on Nobody's War side, if you saw Sabin sort of walk out there and peek out, that means Nobody War will be getting Sabin after they beat this boss. This is the Welk spot based on Terra's original check, so we'll open up a lot of things. As well, mentioned the the Zen Thief that Nobody War didn't buy. One of the checks in World of Rune Zen is based on Sabin, so that will be a nice way to combo that in, buy that Esper while they're doing Sabin's check there as well.
I do like this play on Hefe's side because the thought of the play. I don't mind doing a Leet River check early to try to get some levels. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out here because, as you were saying, there's no experience with these with the level magic. But usually, it's not a terrible play. A lot of people despise Leet because it's a long check. But with an offering VK, offering Valiant Knife, that's not too bad to go ahead and do it. But unfortunately, it just didn't work out too well because of all of the level magic going on.
Well, but I mean, as you see here, not all the boss enemies are going to be level magics, so it does give a bit of variety there. The other thing to note, the reason people sometimes don't like Leet River is that it's all those battles up front, and then there's the boss. So if you run into a boss you just flat out can't beat, one of the tougher bosses in the game, especially if, they only have 2 characters here, then you might have to completely reset out and lose all that time of the upfront battles and really, lose a bunch of time. So that's sort of why people don't love doing Leet River early.
Oh, they're just complaining too much. It's okay. It's only a loss of like 5 or 6 minutes if you can't beat that boss.
Yeah, I mean, in a seed like this, 100% seed, it'll be less of a burn than it would be in some of our normal seeds. The Ultros League is what we'd call our most typical quote-unquote default settings, and those typically full times are somewhere between 110 to 140 are fairly common times on that, so losing 5 or 6 minutes could be killer right there. And a seed like this, 100% seed, even if they have to bail out, 5 minutes you can easily overcome.
Yeah, it's not too bad on this, but I've 5 minutes in our standard Ultra Sleep, like you're saying, I mean, that can not only can that can make a difference over the whole 8 week course for our season, our Ultra League season, whenever you're competing with 8, 10, 12, 15 other people in your division, and you're only 5 minutes behind the top, but that could still make you last.
Yeah, it looks like Hefe found the Three Stooges. These are typically in the Dome of Dream from the vanilla game. These are considered one of the more difficult bosses. I don't think Hefe will have any trouble here, but one thing to note is that these bosses do. One of them revives the other, so you have to kill the one who revives it, and then they also have certain resistances or immunities depending on their color coded. So they're color coded for easy access. So for example, the red one casts fire spells.
This might be a slow battle, but like you said, I don't. Oh, he's got an ice rod. He's got several of them, so he should be all right. Yeah, this should go fairly fast. Now that I see that he has those ice rods,
Yeah, because ice rods are an item which I'm sure vanilla nobody really pays attention to, but they are great actually because they do tier 2 magic, which is fairly strong magic. There is typically a random value added to the damage, but for ice rods, they do maximum damage. So you get huge damage, and then they also ignore magic defense. So they are just very, very useful consumable items. Again, you probably ignored them when you played vanilla, but they are very useful here.
back in the day, whenever all this first got started, Worlds Collide, that was kind of the go-to, finding rods and super balls in shops, and then you started your seed. But you don't see rods and super balls in shops anymore for uh, our standard flags. And we don't see them in this one either. So
Yeah, but since we're opening up some new stuff, just to give a little bit of description as to what's randomized here, of course, as you can tell, the characters are randomized that you get. The abilities each character has are randomized, and then the Esper abilities are randomized as well. So, for example, an early game Esper from vanilla, like Ramu or Rama, depending on how you want to pronounce it, would typically just have Bolt 1, Bolt 2 in the vanilla game. Here it can have pretty much any spell in the game. So that's the sort of thing that can be randomized as well. You see Sabin has the Magitech. Characters can have random bonus commands. Terra's got jump. So there's a lot that's randomized, and then of course as well, shop contents, chests, etc., all randomized.
and so if you notice, oh, actually, yeah, if you notice right now with Magitech, Saban's only got four possible Magitech commands. But as I was talking about earlier with the Magitech unlock, by going through, how many times am I going to say Magitech? By going through Celis's checks, Magitech Factory End, going through that, it'll unlock all of the possible Magitech commands.
Absolutely, and the Magitech commands are actually very, very good. The first three beams are Fire, Ice, and Bolt Beam. Those are effectively equivalent to a level 2 spell, single target. Heal Beam is equivalent to a level 2 or Cure 2. But then the final upgraded version, Tech Missile, is one of the strongest abilities in the game. Single target damage. There's Bioblaster, which does nice, fairly decent group damage. There is Exfer, which is a highest percentage instant death spell in the game. And then I think there's also a Muddle effect. Primarily what you're looking for, though, is Tech Missile, which is high enough single target damage it can basically carry that character through the entire seed.
Yeah, it's basically the equivalent to Flare, except a lot faster animation time. All right, now Hefe just finished up his Dataluma fight, and now Nobody War's running into all those level magics.
Yeah, and that is the one nice thing about this being 100% seed is that if you run into something like this where you're devoting a lot of time to level magics and you're like, this is not the fight or battles I want to be dealing with, at least you know your opponent is going to have to deal with it too. So it doesn't feel as bad as in a normal seed where there are different paths through the seed. And you're like, well, I'm wasting time here and I my opponent may not be. At least you know your opponent's still in the same problem as you do.
Hefe's going to have a lot easier go with a lot of stuff right now, just because that the VK offering combo, that VK with being non-elemental damage, or sorry, defense ignoring damage, not non-elemental, but defense ignoring damage. That's going to help a lot because right now nobody war is basically going to be relying on Magitech a lot, which is just fire, ice, and bolt. So, and he has the Lumina, which is it's great and all, but it also has that Pearl proc that can actually cause a lot of problems at times too.
Yeah, Pearl is when it activates, it's either really, really good or really, really annoying, depending on if the enemy absorbs it. The one thing to note here, I'm actually interested that Hefe's doing this play here, because the one thing about running up here is that you do have to you get teleported back down after beating Kefka, which is something that was added fairly recently in the randomizer. But there are other checks up here. There's a Mog check up here. So at some point, Hefe is going to get Mog and have to do this walk up and down yet again. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we see Nobody War put this sort of check off until they have Mog and can really combo in, rather than committing themselves to have to make this run for another time.
I'm kind of with you on that. I didn't catch I didn't catch if Nobody War went up, but it does make sense with having Mog and going back through all that. Maybe Hefe just has something up his sleeve.
Maybe, but have to get past this blue dragon first here, because
Yeah. And
so
that blue dragon,
dragons are, I mean, they're good experience, but they are also very dangerous. And the other thing about taking this check early, like Hefe did, is you have to split your party. See, they only have 2 people despite the 3 they have listed, so could be dangerous there.
well, he might squeak through this one. I don't think Blue Dragon has very much um, HP left, but it could be enough to. Oh, is he gonna make it? I'm surprised he hasn't thrown that Super Ball that he found. Or did
Yeah.
he use it? Did he use that on another fight? I didn't catch that.
Oh, barely sneaking through. However, one thing to
Wow.
note is that Terra does have, if you saw a bunch of zeros getting hit by, Terra is equipped with the Minerva, which is a very good defensive item and absorbs or immunity to a bunch of elements. And then I believe also an elemental shield. So it's a little less dangerous than you would think, but still not great. But managed to make it through, and then got a Esper for his trouble. Meanwhile, one thing to note is that at this point, Hefe is sort of running a slightly low on character checks. So each character opens up a set of checks sort of related to what they did in the original game in the storyline. Terra has the most with 5, and Sabin, I believe, also has 5. Edgar has 3, but they're all sort of chained together. So I think we're going to start seeing some of those, because you really want to make sure you get characters early and then keep going and keep proceeding. You know, the more checks you do, the more you have options, and you just want to get stuff done.
So I'm wondering. It looks like both of them kind of have the same idea to just start one character, do all their checks, and then maybe move on to the next. Kind of looks like what they're doing. Because no, it doesn't look like it. Oh yeah, maybe so. Nope, I was wrong. Thought maybe Hefe was headed over to Zozo.
No, I mean, I think this is I like this as a play. So there is a check here, the Figaro Castle Throne Room, which in vanilla is where you'd pick up Sabin the very first time you enter, or excuse me, you'd pick up Edgar the very first time you head here. It's a Minerva, which is a nice defensive equipment. The other thing as well, and what we're about to see, is that Edgar gets you a 50% discount in shops like he does in the World of Rune South Figaro, as we mentioned earlier. So this is a good place to stock up if you need to buy anything. However, shops are randomized, so there may be, like we just saw there, nothing that you really need / want.
Yeah, he's. I mean, the only really thing he'd be looking for here is consumables. So that's mainly what you see in these two shops.
Yeah, occasionally you find items. Apparently, did not like what he saw, so he sent that character to or the shopkeeper to infinity there with the Y remove command. We'll be interested to see sort of where Hefe goes from here. Because as you mentioned, if you want to focus on a character checks, Terra's still got some checks. However, the other thing that's often done is that Edgar's check can sort of be combined together. So you can do a couple in a row, or it looks like, heading up to Narshir.
Oh,
So we're
he
about to,
is going to logic break this. He's going to use Y remove to go into the weapon shop, and he's going to do the shield.
yeah, so this is the Cursed Shield, which typically would require lock to lockpick the doors. However, in this seed, you're able to use Y remove to unlock the doors themselves. And then this check, the weapon shop check, has two items, one of which you pick between them, and then the other in the randomizer, you can get the other option later. Behemoth Suit versus Thunder Shield, both pretty decent items, taking the Thunder Shield, of course, which is a nice item. The other thing with the Curse Shield is it allows you to, with that plus a Peace Ring, after you do 14 battles, if you saw the Curse Shield 14, it decurses into a Paladin Shield. Unlike Vanilla, you don't have to do 255 battles and just watch time flip away forever.
So I'm curious. I'm still. I wonder if um, Hefe or Nobody War, because of the Y remove, they can actually logic break into Magitech now and go ahead and open up all the commands for all the abilities for Magitech if they choose to do that. That could actually help their offense or you know, semi early game. I wonder if that's something that they'll decide to do.
I mean, I would think about it. I also think, however, that Magitech is kind of a long check, so I'd kind of like to get fourth character beforehand. Meanwhile, Hefe opening up this monster in a box and getting Gigantos, which this is one of the default monster in a boxes, and this is actually one of the best encounters to find. Gigantos has the highest experience multiplier in the game, so Hefe is going to get a ton of levels here.
Yeah, that's one
Meanwhile,
of my
nobody
favorite
war seeing
fights.
a dragon.
Yeah, with those dragons being mixed in, that makes it fun as well. Also, with too bad on the Gigantos that we don't have any insta death right now because that could take him out. I don't know that he's weak to break, but I think Doom and X Zone for sure takes him out.
Yeah, I mean, he also doesn't have all that much health, so not too surprising. Good thing that Hefe was able to revive Sabin and keep Sabin alive because Sabin was level 3, which level 3 characters just are basically useless. So getting a ton of experience there, I would bet that Sabin went from level 3 to probably 15 to 20 in that single battle.
Yeah, probably pretty close. I would agree with you on that.
Meanwhile, on Nobody's War side, getting a very, very nice Esper there, Fenrir, which gives you the image status and is a very key component to late game boss bat, one of the late game final bosses, which we'll discuss a little bit when we get there. It's called Calmness Protection. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but also having magic power +2 and magic power to the extent there's a quote unquote god stat in the game, that would be it. It basically everything that's not actually physical attacks, punching someone with your sword, counts under magic power. So very nice to have a stat boost there. We'll likely have that equipped on someone for almost the entire seed just because it's such a good stat boost to have.
That and strength +2 and your HP 100 they're definitely the top three to have. That HP 100 would be a good one to have right now. And looky there, Heavy just found V knives in the shop, but unfortunately, Ed's the only one that can equip them right now.
Yeah, and having already had one Valiant Knife plus an offering, knowing one of his characters is going to have Tech Missile, and then you're likely given if you're the amount of Espers you're going to collect, you're probably going to get some kind of good magic. You might decide it's not even worth buying because you already have sort of your end game plan, so to speak.
I'm all about having a whole team full of V knives. I'll do it. V knives and your big swords, your big sticks. I'm all about it. I'm not gonna lie. As far whenever it comes to this game, I'm more of the type that'll definitely go for physical damage over magic damage. I'm so conservative whenever it comes to, oh, am I gonna run out of MP? Do I have enough MP and or enough MP healing items? And I'm awful whenever it comes to that. So after searching the globe for 10 minutes trying to find X ethers, making sure I have enough to get through Final Kefka, I'm pretty bad about things like that. So I'll just swing a sword instead.
Yeah, I mean, and the interesting thing about a seed like this, since it's 100%, you are going to end up. Our typical end game levels would be somewhere around 30s to 40s in terms of levels, is a very common end game point. With having an experience egg plus doing all 62 checks, all 8 dragons, some of the optional bosses, I would expect by the time they get to the final boss, we're probably going to be in the 60s, 70s levels. So at that level, basically everything you fight is going to get steamrolled no matter how you choose to do it.
Yeah, and we should have any and everything that we need for the final battles as well. So, as far as any type of magic, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't eventually find Quick, and that's really going to do a lot of work for Edgar. Quick is, if for anybody that doesn't know, Quick is a spell that allows you to do two actions in one turn. So, if you decide to fight, you use the Quick spell, you'll be able to attack twice, or you can attack and use a magic, or magic and item, any two combinations that you would like.
Yeah, and you can also use that for some of the final bosses, which like to use counters. You can also abuse Quick with specific timing in order to cut down on the amount of counterattacks you get, or even in some cases bypass certain enemy attacks. So it can be very useful if you have Quick plus a high damage character like this Edgar already is.
It's very useful on Final Kefka himself because like I'm not really 100% on all of it of why it works the way it does, but it does kind of mess with the Fallen One attack whenever you use that Quick. And I had somebody explain it to me one time, and I'm like, oh, and then I just forgot about it because that's the type of person I am. Because usually by the time if you're using Quick, especially on a offering VK or Atma, usually if you're using that, you're getting past that Fallen One threshold. But it has something to do with the ATB and all that stuff, and I'm just like, that's more than what I can handle. I'm a simpleton. I'll just pretend like I know what you're talking about.
So the easiest explanation, slightly oversimplified, is just that if you do a set amount of damage, I want to say it's like 20 or 30,000 damage before Kefka gets a turn, you actually just skip the Fallen One, and then he goes right into the next phase of his final boss. We can discuss that a little more when we get close to it, because we still got a lot of seed to go. Interestingly, both players still only have 3 characters, which, given the amount of checks they have and given that they're going to do all the checks, I would kind of expect them to have a little more at this point, but we shall see. Nobody were about to show off a new check that we haven't seen yet here, which is the check for the Phantom Tower. One thing to note, you can go to the right and talk to that ghost, and you will find out what the reward is. So in a seed like this, the 100% seed, it doesn't matter. But in a more typical seed, you'll often see people save before entering the Phantom Train. And then if that's something, the reward there is something you don't need, you can just reset right out of it and save yourselves the walk. Of course, here we need to do everything. So not an option. Meanwhile, on Hefe's side, going to do the Ancient Castle check, which is underneath the castle. There is this ancient castle. It's got a dragon, which you need to do as well. Dragons give you a lot of experience, a lot of magic points, so they're always nice to have anyways. And then you get checks. There is a vanilla monster in the box if you were looking for something. I don't think Hefe still is. And then it allows you to come out and then get more checks and basically get the castle back. So very nice to have, worth doing.
This is actually one of my favorite checks in the game. especially for our standard flags, because not only is it three possible items of progression, you can also get a dragon, which gives you a fourth check, which gets you towards your skip. But for this, it's required. You got to do all of this. So for this particular flag set, anyways.
Yeah, and it's a very simple boss here. One thing to note is that since the dragons are mixed in, like we've seen in typical Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide setting, the dragons are just mixed amongst each other, so you would have known this is dragon. Instead, here it's a tunnel armor, and the dragon that used to be here is running around somewhere in the world.
Another Atma weapon, and still not a character. So I'm really kind of wondering where our next character is going to be. I guess well, they still have Zozo on Terra, which they've already found one character in what we call Sphere Zero, or your first level. Many different ways to say it. Um, so maybe there is no other characters on that first level, and it's all going to be through Sabin. We'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, so the way the randomizer algorithm fill works is that generally new characters are slightly more likely to lead to new characters. So, for example, if you really wanted a character here, you'd be chasing who's the most recent character you got, Sabin. So you'd be trying to do Sabin's checks. Given that they know they need to do all 62 checks at some point, anyways, it's less important here than it would be for other cases. But looks like Hefe here is about to go to the Y remove and use Y remove to break into Mount Zozo. Oh, maybe not.
Well, he can go either way on that. He can do Zozo or go into Mount Zozo Tower, or the Mount. But I also wanted to say here, just a second ago, nobody's vanilla game knowledge was shown off by using instant death on leader. I love seeing that. Even though this is randomized, you still need some of the vanilla game knowledge in order to make this game easier or faster for you. So Jay Brunt, there's a question in chat. Wait, don't you have to raise the Figaro after the ancient castle? Well, interesting enough, we have what's called Y remove, so that allows him to get out without actually having to raise the castle again.
Yeah, because normally there would be an NPC there standing there telling you, whoa, whoa, the castle's underground. You can't leave here. But if you push that NPC out of the way, you find out, nope, that guy was just messing with you. The castle was above ground the entire time.
Yeah, I've soft locked myself doing that one time. I forgot to get the character. I went all the way down. This was one of our events, and I can't remember who I was racing, but it was a sync race, and I went all the way down, and I got the dragon and forgot to do the check to check the statue, and I come back out. Why removed my way out, and I couldn't get back in. And the worst part about it, I saved after walking out of the castle, and that was the only save I had. So you can actually soft lock yourself with that particular Y remove.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be that big of an issue here in this particular race because Hefe and Nobody War are both very, very experienced runners, have both been around this community for quite a while, very familiar with these flags. I know Hefe in particular loves to run varied seeds with all sorts of weird flags, and Nobody War does as well, so I'm sure they're both up to speed there. Nobody War finding a Scion there, which is allows them to do several checks, including the Mount Zozo check, which I will imagine Hefe we will see after they finish up this Zozo Tower check. We'll run right back in to do that as well.
So now that he's got this Scion, did we what was his command? What was Scion's command? I missed that.
Cyan has throw, which is really good for us to have. Throw your shurikens, go, go, go!
Yeah, throw is a great command to have, especially starting out, but even later on it can be really good. But looks like nobody war decided to throw that Illuminon Cyan instead.
Yeah, that Nobody War has picked up some Atma weapons, as well as I believe they got a Valiant knife as well. I don't know if he's using it, so plenty of options there. Picking up that same Fenrir that Nobody War got earlier on Hefe's side, and then Hefe will probably warp out here, step right back in to do the Mount Zozo check.
As you notice, we're already in the 30s as far as levels right now, and that's only going to just keep going up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know how many chests Hefe has opened. I would guess they are probably getting close to that target of 120 that they General Mughals agreement agreed to have. So at some point, I would expect sometime soon we're going to stop seeing Hefe open chests because they should be right near that target.
We're looking at 89 chests at the moment. Well, now 90.
Okay, perfect. Our tracker letting us know currently sitting at 89 to 90 chests. So a few more for Hefe, but close to the end. Meanwhile, Nobody War going to do this check that we already saw from Hefe. Hefe going to do this dragon here, which is not a dragon. It is Flame Eater. So numbers, if you're Nobody War here, once you come back and you find this is not a character, where are you thinking about going here if you're playing on Nobody War side?
Well, my general thought process for this, I have 4 characters. I mean, as far as speed wise, if I'm going speed, I think I would just start picking characters and just try to finish out everybody's checks. But also earlier I was talking about breaking into Magitech. I probably would have done that earlier. I'm very unconventional sometimes. But I think I would just pick a character and just start going through every single check because you have to do all of them anyway. And you're going to have enough espers and enough equipment and everything that whatever party you have, and Terra, Cyan, Ed, and Saban won't be too bad. Also, considering you have throw, you have jump, you have apple weapons, you have Illuminas, you have DKs. I mean, you've got all the offense. You're going to come up with all the defense too. So at this point, I would just find as many clustered checks or even checks that are close together on the map. So I think maybe my next thing would go to Dream, maybe, and just pick one character and just start going through all my checks.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. To answer a question in chat about the flag set. So the flag set here, this 100% means they have to do all checks. There are 62 checks in the game, which are character checks. For example, going to Mount Zozo here, which Hefe is doing, or looking through the burning house, which is something relating to Saban, what Nobody War just completed doing. It is killing all 8 dragons. It is a couple of random things which count as checks, even though they don't necessarily, aren't associated with specific characters. For example, the Kefka Narsh fight from the vanilla game, or there is a Atma sitting inside Kefka's tower, so killing that as well. And then because of that, when you do all 62 checks, you're also going to have all 14 characters. You're going to have all 27 espers, and you're going to have all 8 dragons killed. For chests, just because we don't want to have too many chest requirements, because some of the chests are in very remote locations, and as well, you can actually lock yourself out of certain chests, treasure chests, for example, in specific spots that you can only visit once. So their target is 120 chests. And then to answer the other question about the cross style menu, so that is actually an option in the default game that most people don't really use, is that rather than having the 4 commands, 1, 2, 3, 4, right in a vertical line, you can have them in a cross style line instead. So that, if you hit left, that makes you hit the attack, use the command on the left rather than having to scroll up or down. It's mostly just personal preference here. I know Nobody War uses that. Some people do, some people don't.
I would think that cross style would be a lot faster, but a lot of people got to take time to get used to that type of style. I tried for a while playing this, and I was just like, I just don't like it. This isn't what I'm used to. I've been playing this game since I was a kid, and never really knew that was a thing until I started playing Worlds Collide, and I saw that, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna give that a try. I'm like, this is terrible. But like you said, it's personal preference, and it's not something that is for everybody.
Yeah, and there's also a memory command where the game will remember, if you've been casting magic, it'll just put you on that same magic command every time. So if you do that, that can make that more consistent as well and save you the time. And welcome to Double Down 11. Thank you very much for the raid. Double Down is one of our longtime members of the community, helps run some of the things in our community, including the Ultros League, which is our internal league settings for everybody to play. So welcome to the commish, and then to our raiders as well.
Welcome, everybody. Come join the fun.
Did you bring your tracker tacos? Your tracker wants tacos. I want tacos.
Alrighty, so Aroosta, tell me where, after you asked me, where would your next play be? Where would you go next?
So I think if I'm on Hefe's side, I want to just start knocking out some of the checks that are fairly quick, especially on Hefe's side, since you still only have 3 characters. So I would be going to, once you finish up this Imperial camp, I would probably go do some of the Terra checks. For example, the Mobiliz check is one that I'm always a fan of because you can do that fairly quickly. I am a fan of as well with this sort of setting, you can, get through there as well. I think at this point I might go to the finish off Saban's checks doing the Mount Colts, because I think that's one that's nice to do as well. I don't love doing it normally, but it's quick to get through. And on Nobody War's side, I think he's going to clearly finish off the Edgar checks here, and then after that, I agree with you. I think Dream is a good spot at this.
I'm actually a fan of Mount Colts after you said that. I think it's a quick check. You can get in and out of there as long as you have good offense in about 2 minutes, if you know what you're doing. But it looks like Nobody War switched that apple weapon over there for Ed, and he is kind of in a no. He should be all right here. He's already on to the second phase of this, and more vanilla game knowledge right there. Being able to instant death Senior Behemoth is great vanilla game knowledge, especially considering this boss, because sometimes this boss can be a pain.
Yeah, but it looks like Nobody War is going to revive some of their characters first here. Hopefully get off some of the experience. Nice use of the multicast there.
And he's gonna go ahead and get Cyan up too, and then try to take him out. That's a pretty heads up play right there. Making sure to get as much experience as you can.
Yeah, and since we're just seeing some repeated checks here, I'm going to go ahead and just give everybody just a brief debrief on the seed. So as mentioned a few minutes ago, this is a 100% check, 100% run, where they have to do all 62 checks in the game. As part of that, they will get all 14 characters, all 27 or so espers, kill all 8 dragons, etc., and then go beat Final Kefka. They also have an informal agreement that they will both open about 120 chests, and I believe, based on the last time our tracker updated us, they are at somewhere around 100, 110 at this point, so probably only see a few more chests from here going forwards. As well, some of the other unique items of the seed are there is a 5% chance for any normal treasure chest to turn into a monster in a box. The dragons are mixed in with the normal bosses, which is something we don't normally do. And there is something called B dash, where you can hold B and you're not just running at sprint shoe speed, you're running at double sprint shoe speed. So you can see our guys are running running as fast as they can. This is, as well, if you're not familiar, this is Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide, which is a randomized version of Final Fantasy VI / Final Fantasy III in the Super Nintendo era, where characters, espers, etc. can be pretty much anywhere, and they are based on what those characters did in the vanilla game. So, for example, where you see on the left side with Hefe on the Phantom Train, Sabin is linked to the Phantom Train in the original game. So if you have Sabin, you can go do the Phantom Train. So that's what checks are. And there you go. Oh, there's our nice little understanding and clarification there. Thank you to our restreamer behind the scenes, Drinks Glue, for setting all this up. And then as well, our tracker, Iruliana, for pushing the buttons and keeping us in line.
And to remind everybody, this is all for a submission for Stand Up Against Cancer. It's Gamers Against Cancer. It's a marathon that is in March that they put this on in order to just raise money against cancer. They also, not only are they Gamers Against Cancer, they are also Gamers Against Suicide. It's something that Worlds Collide has been working with them for over. I think the last year we've been pretty close with them and trying to get plenty of runs in for these guys, and it's something that's pretty close to a lot of us as far as cancer, suicide, some of these things that all of us. It just means a lot to us to try to give back however we can for these types of things.
Yeah, we were in Gamers Against Suicide last year. I think it was a Celis only run, and I have a chest update for you. We're currently sitting at 98 for Hefe. The thing is, I can't get one for Nobody War because they don't have it on their tracker.
Okay, I would bet Nobody War is probably in a similar level because they've been opening about the same amount. Thank you for that update. To answer a question in chat, yes, I didn't mention that, but they do have Y remove, which is basically if you run up to an NPC and you push Y, they just sort of disappear. You can throw them out of your way, whether it's something that's actually blocking you from doing a check in some cases, or if it's just, hey, a townsperson decides to stand in your way while you're trying to climb some stairs, just be like, excuse me, sir, and walk nicely past him. And as well, there's a question as to whether Worlds Collide has a jump flag like Mystic Quest. There's not a jump flag, but in terms of the ability to get past NPCs and all that, the Y remove sort of serves that same sort of purpose.
I'm guessing Nobody Wars probably hit his numbers on chess because he just passed a lot of chests in Age Castle. They're super quick to get to. So I bet you he's already got his cap on that and good to go.
Absolutely. And one thing to note, and you see that Cyan that Hefe got joined at level 3, is that some of the flags in some of our typical flag sets, the new characters will join at the average of your party level. So, if you got a new character like this, he would be up to speed rather than being, in this case, all the way down at default level, which is level 3. So it's kind of a mixed bag there. On one hand, your new character is at level 3 and it's kind of useless. On the other hand, Hefe can equip a Strength +2 Esper or Magic Power +2 Esper. And then once that Cyan gets up to speed, they will have 30, 40 levels of that boost. And so they will be super, super powerful.
So we also have another question. Is it party average scaling? It is actually party highest scaling on here. So whatever the highest number is, that's the scaling on the monster, on our bosses.
Yeah, meanwhile, it looks like Nobody War is going to do that Mobilist check, which in the vanilla game, this is where you get Terra. In the World of Rune, you come here and they say, you're not going to take Terra away, are you? And then in Worlds Collide, it's actually set up so if you talk to the kids, they will instead tell you what you're going to get as a reward. In this case, Nobody War is not going to check it. You would enter that first building, and that's where you find out about it. Doesn't really make sense to check it here because in a 100% run, you have to do that anyways. In a normal run, you would check it and decide, do I want that reward or not, and then potentially bail out. But it looks like there will be a lock.
Nobody War also just didn't. I don't know if you want to consider it a glitch or a trick or what, but something that actually saves you a few seconds in a normal run. But normally, whenever you walk into the house, there's a dog that meets you and barks. You can't go up and into the basement until the dog goes up and into the basement. But if you immediately turn left there and then go up, it keeps you from having to wait on the dog, and you just go up, go down there, go right into the basement without having to wait.
Absolutely. You call it a trick, and it kind of is, but on the other hand, like, the trick is just pressing left instead of pressing up as your very first movement. So it is a very, very, pretty much as simple of a trick as you can imagine. Just gets you right through.
Well, I didn't know if I wanted to call it a glitch, because I don't think it's really a glitch either, is it?
I think it's just that they programmed one little trigger tile, and that was the trigger tile that, if you're going in normally and you're just playing casually, you're gonna be holding up to enter the house, and you're just gonna keep holding up, and so you trigger the dog. And then they were like, well, nobody's gonna let go of up and just hit left instead. It's like, well, when you're doing it in a speed run, yeah, you are.
They were wrong. Well, I was kind of hoping we'd get some of these bigger bosses early. But we have not, really. We haven't seen the Goddess. We haven't seen the Polty. No Doomgaze yet. Speaking of that, I wonder what... I'm going to look and see what the statues are. Bosses. Statues. Nope. Statues are shuffled, so there you go.
Yep, and Nobody War deciding to pick up that lock. I did miss what commands lock had, but the character that Nobody War left behind was also not... I don't think Cyan was doing a whole lot. Oh, maybe. So maybe it's just, hey, we'll start over with a level 3. And as well, knowing that you've still got 40 more checks to go, it's less of a penalty. In a normal seed, 57 minutes in, you'd be close to ending your seed, so picking up a new character would be a questionable decision. Here, you've got plenty of time to bring that guy up, that new lock up to speed if you choose to use him.
The only time I'll bring in a new character at the end is if I have, like, a steel capture gal that was just the best character out of any of the others, or, somebody with just really, really bad commands. Or if I catch somebody that has natural magic, that has, like, a realm with natural magic, I'm looking for a Cure 3 or something like that. That's the only time I'll switch them out. If I've got to be pretty desperate, put it that way.
Yeah, meanwhile, Hefe here showing off the Coliseum. If you see a lot of the ones on the right side, it actually lists what's available. So that is a setting you can set in the randomizer. You can say it's anywhere from nothing, where it's all question marks, which is how the vanilla game, I believe, worked, or you can have them identify what's what, all the way to 100%. I think here it looks like it's about half of the items, which is kind of what the default is. Typically, when you're looking for when you're doing a run here, Coliseum, you're looking for something, an elite offense or an elite defensive item.
So I'm not really sure why he's going for the rainbow brush. Do we have... I don't think we have any objective as far as the Coliseum either. Maybe he's just looking for something to boost magic stats. Yep, there is no Coliseum objective either. I wonder what made him decide to do that.
I don't know. But meanwhile, on Nobody War's side, so that is running into, while you're flying the airship in the world of Rune, there is one specific tile that has, in the vanilla game, has Doomgaze. So if you see the vanilla speedrun, you can often see them flying for several minutes, just in straight, slightly turned lines going until they hit that tile. Here in the randomizer, in order to avoid you having to do that, if you have Setzer, you can just tell the airship to find Doomgaze, and Setzer will fly the airship in a way that finds Doomgaze immediately, or you can still run into him randomly, which is what Nobody War had.
I believe we have an estimate of about 2 hours and 15 minutes for the seed, and it looks like it's going pretty smooth so far. Both players aren't running into any issues as far as combat. They found all the offense, all the defense they need. There's been a few scares here and there, but otherwise this is running pretty smooth. And it's a good display of showing what can be done. And they're both great runners as well. Hefe and Nobody War. I've raced with them many a times over the years, and they're always fun to race with, and they're just genuinely good racers and have a lot of knowledge about this game as well.
Absolutely. And so what we're seeing here on Nobody War's side, so this is the Phoenix Cave, which is one of the lock checks. You have to bounce back and forth between parties, which in a seed like this, there is also a dragon at the end, which is very nice. But in a seed like this, you want to probably wait until you have 5 characters so that you can, like Nobody War does, have one person, in this case Cyan, one party take care of all the switches, and then the other party has a full party of 4 to fight the dragon. The other thing you might have noticed it here, and you probably didn't pick up on it when you're playing casually, is you don't always need to stand on all the switches to trigger stuff. You can just run over the spikes, like Cyan just did there, and in some cases you can hit the switch and just run away.
And we see Hefe is going a different way. He's decided to not take lock as Nobody War did. Or wait, did he switch back out? I thought he kept locking his party. I guess he changed his mind. I missed that part.
Yeah, if I remember right, we had already seen that Cyan can equip some of the top tier weapons, so might have just decided to stick with the party Hefe already had. Because Hefe has found Valiant Knives, has found some Atmas, has found at least one Illumina, so you have plenty of physical options as long as Cyan can equip one of them.
Oh, I was looking at backwards. Oh my word, he did. So Nobody War did keep.
Yeah, nobody War traded
he
out.
Did keep it.
Nobody War traded out the Cyan for a lock. Hefe did not.
Yeah,
Hefe just kept.
That's me not looking close enough. I got crossed looking at that. I was thinking that he had switched out, but yep, maybe I should just pay better attention. But I'm surprised we haven't ran into more characters so far. That always seems to be my biggest problem in the game. I'm always finding more characters than espers.
Yeah, so I think it's primarily because they started off by sort of knocking out a lot of their checks for their starting characters. And as we mentioned earlier, the way the fill algorithm works is that new characters often lead to more new characters. So I would, for example, Nobody War here in the lock check that they just got the lock, there's an above average chance that this leads to another character. Not guaranteed, but slightly above higher chance of that than an Esper or a dead check.
I believe Hefe actually, now that I'm thinking about it, Hefe has a lot of experience with doing these at least a similar type 100% run. He usually does one every New Year's, and it's kind of his ritual. I think they usually start earlier in the morning, and he runs a race, and everybody just decides to do a 100% run. I've yet to get in on that though. I've been meaning to, but I'm always like, nah, I'm not getting it. I'm fine.
Yeah, meanwhile, Nobody War going through the Mount Colt check here. Hefe is here in Cyan's Dream, which, you see the shadow running around there. that is one of the quote-unquote peekable parts of it, is that you can actually see what character you're going to get. If it's a character, you'll see the character sprite. If it was an Esper or a item, you would just see a generic sprite. I believe in this case it's a ghost, or it could just be a random merchant. It sort of depends on which check, but and then as well, so that will be the second response, and then I believe there's a third item, or Esper / item, which you get from the throne room after you finish the dream. So the dream has 3 checks, and we've already gotten the first one, that Odin, and the second one is going to be Shadow. Third, we're going to find out once they do it.
So I wouldn't be surprised that if FA doesn't go straight to floating content after this. I believe this is the last of the science checks for him. He did do Doma Siege, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. So I bet you he beelines to floating content just to kind of get that out of the way, since that's one of the longer checks that you can have.
Yeah, I mean, though I will say, given that you know you have to do it at some point, the fact it's one of the longer checks is not in other seeds where you're trying to finish and you know you might need to. Ooh, that is not the attack you wanted to see there. Should still get through it, but man, that is bad timing on that attack.
Yeah, that was rough. I have faith. He's got this.
He's got this. It's just,
yeah.
You would have liked to see pretty much any other attack so everybody else could be alive and get experience.
Well, exactly like you're saying, though, this is a long seed, so I don't think experience is going to be too big of a deal.
No.
There's Merton. I wonder if we have Merton protection.
I don't know. I know on Hefe's side, they've got at least 2 Minervas and then a bunch of elemental shields. I assume Nobody War probably does as well, just because any check that doesn't result in a character or Esper gets you an item and a high tier item, and a decent percentage of the high tier item pool list for what it could be gives you some kind of protection. So I would expect both runners have full Merton protection should they want it.
I'm kind of curious. You know what? I am going to slip into Hefe's stream. I would like to see what his check count is right about now. Be sure to everybody out there, be sure to give these 2 guys a follow for sure on Twitch. Show them some love. And it looks like... Oh, I can't read it. It's too small. I gotta wait for the ads to go away.
Meanwhile, Hefe is going to run through the Phoenix Cave, which we just saw on their side, or excuse me, on Nobody War's side. Looks like Nobody War is going to do a little bit of shopping here. You have plenty of stuff to sell because 120 chests, which is what the target is much higher than you typically see. I mean, more commonly, even at the sort of lower levels, some of the newer runners, typically you won't see people open more than 80 to 90 chests most of the time. And then as well, like at the level that Nobody War and Hefe are at, both very experienced runners, sometimes you'll get as low as like 60 to 70 chests. So they have plenty of stuff to sell before going into Zozo here. Nobody War going to do the same thing we saw Hefe do earlier, which is the Zozo Tower into the Mount Zozo check. Or in this case, I guess Nobody War is doing it the other way, but still gonna do this and then do the Zozo Tower Terra check as well.
So that we know, Hefe at this moment has 23 checks. So he's getting close to halfway, but still got a little bit. And he's got 107 chests as of right now. I'm also going to...
Meanwhile, Nobody War, I believe, is at 21 checks is what it looks like looking at his stream. So they are fairly even. And when you have this many checks to do, really being one or two ahead or one or two behind at this point is pretty trivial because nobody war is going to get multiple. It's going to do this dragon, well, flame eater / dragon, and then immediately get the check afterwards because a lot of these checks can be comboed together. So really, until we get closer, they are pretty much tied more or less. Still plenty of seed to go.
Yeah, I've got a feeling that like we're really not gonna know for sure like who's ahead until we get down to like final Kefka type stuff because it's so hard to really determine because the length of these checks they vary so much. And also considering you go one place that takes 3-4 minutes to do a check, and then you go to another place it takes 4 or 5 minutes to do multiple checks. And then who knows, the bosses at one point say you catch Doomgaze and Nobody War can be all level 45, all his characters are gone, and he's got to do something to fix that. Hefe can catch Doomgaze all level 43 and not have any issues with it. So, I mean, there's so much variance in this flag set that it also makes it kind of exciting and pretty fun whenever it comes down to it.
Yeah, though I will note in particular Doomgaze, I don't think either runner is going to have a problem with Doomgaze. So Doomgaze, for those of you who remember Vanilla, that was the one you had to fly around in the airship and run into. He leads off with level 5 Death, which instantly kills anybody who's an equivalent of level 5, and that's primarily what's going to cause you trouble if you happen to hit that level. However, as we've seen, both runners, because new characters start at level 3, so they are going to be a different level, and then both runners have had several battles where some or all their party has been dead, so their parties are kind of a mess, like all different levels. In a typical seed, you can often run into a case where all your parties are at the exact same level, and that's where the level 5 Doom can really kill you. Here, I think everybody is at a different level. Yeah, just looking at Hefe's screen, his 4 characters are all on 4 separate levels, so...
And plus, we have an experience X too, so that makes a difference in all of it as well.
Yeah, making sure that your levels aren't going to be synced up.
Nothing can ruin a run faster than running into Doomgaze with all level 5 characters. I'm pretty sure both runners are pretty much just set on all their offense for now, and they're kind of on cruise control right now.
Yeah, absolutely. They're pretty much... I mean, Terra is doing that jump on Nobody War's side. You've seen the offering attacks, all sorts of stuff. So both runners are basically just flying through the seed. Probably see them swap out Espers every now and then just to get different equipment, or different spells learned. But by and large, you're not going to see a whole lot. The attacks you're seeing are going to be the attacks you're seeing.
Everybody, get excited! The Yeti is here finally. We got him. We've got him. Unofficially, Hefe may have won the seed with that, but we're gonna keep going just in case.
Yes.
Everybody loves a good Yeti.
Yes, the Yeti is everybody's favorite / least favorite character. He's kind of a meme within the Worlds Collide community because... So Umaro, the Yeti, since you can't control him, he can't equip Espers. He does fairly decent physical damage, especially since in Worlds Collide we've allowed him to actually be equipped, and so he can actually change his gear. But since you can't control him, he's kind of got a limit as to how useful he can be. And there's a meme in the community where like people often joke about him being an airship pilot, because it's often what you have him do is just sort of sit on the airship while your team is actually doing the stuff that's important.
And there's some people out there that will put him in his party, but put him in their party regardless of the situation. They love a Yeti. I like finding Yeti because you get that snow muffler. And that snow muffler can be big even if you don't put Umaro in your actual party. You can equip him, use that snow muffler as... I think it is the highest defensive armor you can find.
Yes, and it also has a couple nice elemental elemental resistances / immunities paired with it as well. Innately, only Mog and Umaru himself can equip it, but with the way Worlds Collide is set up, there's a additional chance. Every single character has a 45% or 50%, depending on the seed, chance of being able to equip it. So, but I will say in these settings, I think they've already found plenty of useful stuff. Maybe next time they're in the airship, you'll see them unequip. Go to, hey, unequip everything and equip that snow muffler, but it's not as useful as it would be in a normal seed because they have all these checks, all this good equipment already on board.
Absolutely, you're definitely right on that one. We actually have a Yeti only preset, I believe, where you only use the Yeti to get through the entire seed. Those are kind of interesting to watch.
Yeah, and I mean, in the early game, the Yeti can actually be quite useful because it does bring. I mean, he has very high stats. Can't cast the magic, but does have very high stats and very high offense. So early in a seed, Yeti can actually help carry you through the start of the seed. And in some cases, if you equip him well, can even he can be viable even in Final Kefka at the very end of the game. It's just that since you can't control him, it's always a risk.
It's definitely a risk, and especially whenever you're wanting to do more single targeting on Final Kefka, or at least be able to control your AoE, use an AoE this time, and then just not attack the next turn. It's pretty big, especially tier 1. You let the Yeti loose, and he decides to destroy the wrong target at the wrong time. Then you get quaked, and then you're starting over.
Yeah, meanwhile, Hefe here up in Narsh, while we're talking about Yeti, this is actually the Ice Dragon, which you can do for without any characters. And then just beyond this is the Tritox spot, which is where that Esper is. You see it at the very start of the game in the World of Balance Narsh, but you can only pick it up in the World of Rune, and then you can pick it up here. And then underneath that is the Yeti's Cave, if you have the Yeti, like we do, which is another check. So Hefe is going to get 3 checks back to back to back very quick here. And picking up that, that Illumina, which is the best sword in the game. Illumina has the maximum allowable battle power, which several weapons have. It also automatically crits whenever it does damage. It ignores rows, so you can put the person in the back row and get that boosted defense. It also is unofficially a very good defensive item because it gives you, I believe, 50% evade and 50% magic block, I believe. So it is, and it also raises all your base stats by quite a bit. So it is the best item in the game, bar none, and an item which pretty much you are never unhappy to see.
Completely agree with that, unless your characters can't equip them. Then you're very unhappy that you see it.
That's fair. Though in that case, you're still not mad about the Illumina, you're mad at the Seed for not letting people equip them. However, I will note that as a one-handed sword, there are already a bunch of, I want to say probably about 4 to 6 characters who can equip it naturally, so there's a good chance you do have at least one person who can equip it. You know, Terra, Celeste, I believe Locke and Edgar can all equip it naturally, maybe one other person, so you have lots of options.
I think they're the ones that can equip them naturally. I think they're the only ones. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. You know, all we need right now is, since we've got so many Illuminas and Ragnaroks floating around, where's the Genji gloves at? I haven't seen any yet.
I don't know. I want to say I thought we saw one, but so Genji Glove is the item which allows you to equip two swords at the same, or 2 weapons in one in each hand, which theoretically lowers your defense. However, in Worlds Collide, typically you're really focused on your offense and just being able to do as much damage as you can. The best defense is a good offense. In this case, you just beat up the bosses before they can hit you back. But especially when one of those weapons is an Illumina, like as we mentioned, it is secretly a defensive item. Oh, nobody wore petting the dog. Gotta pause and talk about that. Good work. True winner of the seed right there. So, if one of your weapons is an Illumina, basically Illumina is better than pretty much every shield in the game by itself.
Yeah, it's actually really, really good if you have no, which we'll talk about this later as well, but calmness mitigation, talking about later on when we get to final Kefka. Having 2 Illuminas, that really decreases the possibility of getting hit with calmness.
Yeah, so calmness, while Hefe is fighting Rexol here, one thing to note about Rexol is that in the vanilla game, you could use X Zone to sort of remove those flames. That's no longer a thing just because it's kind of cheap. So the one thing with Rexol is that when you have a lot of untargeted damage, it can kind of be a problem just because if you keep killing off those, every time you kill one of those flames, it's 4 or 5 seconds. Because you attack the wrong target, it disappears, you have to wait for it to reappear. So it can sort of add up time here. And that's why you will see casting like this level 2 magic, which is normally not great, but better than doing untargeted damage and just wasting time attacking the Soul Savers.
But Hefe did this pretty smart. He went ahead and let Ed do his quad, his offering V-knife attack, and then he's using throw and ice too. Just using it that first time to kind of get the initial out there, and then you're not killing the Soul Savers every time you turn around by swinging that. So that's a pretty heads up move. As far as I'm concerned, that's a lot of how I play too. Whenever I come and run into Rexol, go ahead and let my offering off once, and then back off and just try to do single targeting on Rexol himself, whatever you want to call it. All right, so Nobody Wars now running into, and like I said, logic breaking Magitech.
Yeah, and that is that wire move, just sort of very gently ask the guy who is blocking it, please, sir, I would like to get in there, and tell the guard to slightly get out of your way, just walking right past him. So going to be able to do this check. As we mentioned, Magitech is an ability where once you complete this Magitech factor, it gets upgraded, and so you get the second half, which in the vanilla game are the Terra only commands, that Tech Missile, Bioblast, Exferent, which is an instant death, and then Muddle. Given how much damage they're already doing, it might not, in normal seed, you would be thrilled to get Tech Missile because it is one of the best single target attacks in the game. Given how much damage they're already doing, might be kind of superfluous, but you do need to do this at some point, so.
Hefe and that Terra is swinging for big damage in that Atma weapon. That was almost 4,500 swing on a dragon, so that is up there, and that's pretty good. Your dragons usually have elevated defense and offense, so that's that's a good looking Terra. That's all I can say. Yeah, so we got something spoke out in chat here talking about the possession move that Rexol does, which is actually Zinger. And yes, that is removed because one of the main reasons for that is because sometimes you may run into Rexol with only one character. So that could potentially, you can't kill yourself and then actually finish that. So it essentially can make a seed unfinishable. That doesn't sound right. Not able to finish it. So that's one of the reasons why that flag is in there. And plus, it's really annoying to have to go through that. So hopefully that's the main reason why. But
yeah, it's really, I mean, since in most settings you start with 2 characters, it's really more just that it's kind of an annoying way, like fight. It doesn't actually make the possession move doesn't actually make the fight more difficult because Rexol doesn't really have the offense to, to make you punish you for, hey, you had to kill a character and revive him. It just makes things take longer, and it's kind of annoying. So
that's also, some of the other features of Worlds Collide. Magimaster no longer there's a flag to turn off the Ultima death counter as well, which that's off on most seats as well, and that's also a quality of life type thing as well. And Doomgaze cannot run away either.
Yeah, meanwhile, Nobody War deciding to show us the Poison Walk setting here. If you don't like awkward or weird flashes or colors on your screen, maybe pay attention to Hefe for a while.
Good old seizure walk, as I like to call it.
There we go. And one thing as well, if you saw Nobody War using sleeping bags, that's one of those subtle optimizations you only realize when you're doing this for speed, is that the tent, every time you use a tent, I want to say it's like 10 seconds just watching the jump in the tent animation, them falling asleep, then them standing up for it. Whereas a sleeping bag, you just spam it on all 4 characters. Or in some cases, if you only have a couple characters who even need healing, you even just use it on a couple characters. So it's one of those subtle time saves.
It's also really nice whenever you're still trying to keep your V-Knife user, keep their HP down a little bit, and that way you can just heal your 2 or 3 other characters, whatever it may be, and also keep V-Knife users down, and they can do maximum output of damage.
Yeah, though I will note, given the levels involved here, because the formula for physical offense in Final Fantasy VI, which is kept the same for Worlds Collide, very heavily relies on levels. So you can see Edgar is at full health with the Valiant Knife and is still doing 2,500 a swing. That would be more if he was at low health, but just with the levels they're going to be dealing with, he's going to be doing huge damage even at full health. So it's a little helpful here as opposed to compared to a normal seed. Also, did it just say it dropped a Valiant Knife from that boss? Or from that enemy?
Surely that's not right. I don't think we have randomize on. Let me look real quick.
Well, it looks like he has 3 Valiant Knives, so I think that was indeed dropped.
I'm trying to find that right now.
Yes, dual Atmas on both sides for Hefe and Nobody War. Yeah, and Hefe, if you saw those levels already being at the high 50s of levels, so as I mentioned earlier, in our typical, like our Ultros League settings, which are as close to default settings as we sort of have, typically you would enter the final Kefka, like the final dungeon, somewhere between low 30s, or excuse me, high 30s to low 40s is a very common level. Even in slightly more completionist settings, typically you would be only levels, maybe high 40s, low 50s. And Hefe still has 20, 30 something checks to go from here. So we are going to be at extremely high levels. And you can see they're already steamrolling through the seed just from all those levels.
Yeah, I don't know how that dropped a Valiant Knife, but okay, I'm not even sure what boss or what enemy it was. Now I'm all caught up in that and wondering what's going on over there instead of actually paying attention to things I should be doing.
Well, so right now it is the they are both just on the floating continent, and that was one of these battles here. So we'll see what if Nobody War has that same luck. Not that I really think it matters, because at this point you've already got what you need. One thing as well, just to note, is that Nobody War was at 32 checks out of the 64, whereas right now Hefe appears to be, with that item they just picked up, is at 33 checks out of 64. So both are pretty much tied and both about halfway through the seed. But with the damage they're doing, the second half of these checks will be much, much faster than the first half.
Yeah, all this is going to be running pretty smooth, pretty fast the rest of the seed. It is just so much as it's going to be execution for the most part for the rest of the seed. Just who runs it smoother.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So he just picked up an offering there. So it does mean that the items that they get from bosses are randomized.
The drops, yes.
The drops are randomized, which that's not normally the case for our standard seeds. So this is a little different for this one. So all that is randomized, which I did not realize that. I missed that part.
Absolutely. And so one thing as well to note is that with the way with how they're going, they are both absolutely flying through these seeds. The other thing to note as well is that bosses have a maximum level which they're allowed to. They scale based on the checks you do, and I believe the bosses have a maximum level. Numbers, I believe you've got the seed, so maybe you know, but typically I know in most settings that's either level 40 or level 50 is the maximum level bosses can get up to. So our characters are either at or above the enemy's level, and will be even more so for the rest of the seed.
So actually, what we decided to do as we talked through this and getting prepared for the submission, I remember this specific instance where they were like, "Well, it'd be relatively boring if we kept the scaling low." The scaling is actually the max scaling is 70. And with it being party highest, that means it's always going to be the same. The bosses, the monsters are going to be the same as our characters.
Interesting. I mean, I think that is a good idea, and that sort of keeps things interesting. If you saw on Hefe's side, they changed up their characters. So this is the Velt check, which is a dried meat check. This is where you'd pick up Gao, and he says, Mr. Thou, when you first meet him. And so in order to do that, you need to only have less than 4 characters in your party, because the sprite of the person who comes in this case Gogo, actually counts as a party member. So if you have a full party of 4, they will never show up. Everybody's gotten tripped up by that once or twice.
I've done that a lot lately, and I don't know why I've been doing it. With as long as I've been playing this game, I mean, especially with the randomizer. So I've been part of the community pushing 5 years now, and lately I've been doing that a lot. I would just go running in there, and then 5 minutes later, I realize, oh, I still have 4 characters. I need to change that. You feel kind of silly when you do it, but look at all the offerings that Hefe. I think everybody has an offering on right now. Yep, all offerings.
Yeah, and you can see how little Hefe had to go into the relic menu to change things, because still had that peace ring equipped from way back when they were trying to uncurse the shield. Actually don't even know who has the paladin shield. Probably still whoever equipped the curse shield in the first place, just because the equipment is so good you don't really have to go into the menu very often here.
I mean, they're still just super close as far as you looking at characters, espers and dragons. I mean, Hefe has 9 characters, 18 espers, 4 dragons, and nobody wars right there on his tail at 8, 17, and 3. I mean, like we were talking about earlier, this is just gonna be. I mean, we're not really gonna know what's going on, who's ahead until we get down to entering the tower probably.
Absolutely. And I mean, with where they're at right now, and even that little bit of extra on Hefe's side is basically that Hefe has completed the check, which Nobody War is doing right now.
So we had a comment, dual Atma is fun. Yes, dual Atma is very, very fun, but it can be very, very dangerous all at the same time for multiple different reasons. Uh, Anything offering, especially offering V-Knife, offering Atma, offering Fixed Dice, those are so deadly, but they can also destroy your own party the one time you get muddled, or V-Knife and a Doom Tusk. Oh, that just that can just break your soul sometimes whenever you have that happen. So anybody that doesn't know, Doom Dusk is an enemy ability which causes your character to become undead with 0 health, and that character is still fighting, and now all his attacks become random. May hit the actual boss, may hit your own characters, and a character like that, 0 HP V knife user, which is dependent on lower HP to make it more powerful, can absolutely wipe your own party, and it can be very devastating, very devastating.
Yeah, and our tracker Drinks Glue mentions in chat we're at the point where ribbons are a good idea. And honestly, like, I agree. At this point, like, you're allowed to equip two accessories. I mean, one of them is an offering like everybody's got. And honestly, at this point, typically you would want something like a Atlas Armlet, which boosts physical attacks by 25%, or a Hero Ring, which does the same thing. Maybe a Hyper Wrist, which gives you an increased strength and indirectly raises your damage. But you're doing so much damage at this point, I think the only problem would be something like Muddle. So you might consider a ribbon just to not have to worry about status ailments, because you don't really need the extra damage.
Yeah, I was kind of talking about it with you guys before the race started. We were chit chatting back and forth. I had a seed last night where I had a fantastic Scion with Sword Tack 7 early, plus his Strength plus 2 Esper and a Scimitar. He was doing like 4,000, 3 or 4,000 a swing. And that final Kefka, I get Doom Tusk right before I let off my Sword Tech 7, and he decimated the entire party. I was like, hey, and that's really, really bad RNG because those swings are pretty random, but he attacked my entire party, and it was just sad. Muddled VK swings, yes, as Glue mentions in chat, it's always a wonderful thing to not see. Actually, you either cringe for the runner or you cringe as the runner whenever that happens.
Yeah, and so just to give people a brief update, so in terms of what people have done, so Nobody War has done, of the characters they currently have, the only character who they still have checks for is the Umaru check, and then the 2 Gao checks right here that they're about to do, and then the Go-Go check. All the other characters, they are pretty much cleaned out. So progression will be, I guess, at this point, looks like it will be under Go-Go's check, or leading that Strago that they pick up here, I believe, at the trench.
So what characters are we missing? So we're missing Celis, Realm, Setzer, and Mog on FA side. And all of those plus Strago, and Strago's at Serpent Trench. So, and Nobody War's about to pick Strago up. So, just a few more characters, and then it's all the Espers.
Yeah, meanwhile, in terms of the dragons, the one thing to note when you see those 5 and 4 dragons is there are 2 dragons in Kefka's tower, which are going to be the very last things they check, because you'll do that on your way out of the tower. There is also just a couple other dragons which are kind of awkward to get to that they will pick up along the way. So I think primarily the biggest thing you're going to see, Hefe's working on this Magitech factory, which Nobody War has already done. Then Nobody War is going to finish up this trench, and then they will be pretty much completely tied on checks and what checks they've already done. So it's mostly just after this, where do you decide to go? Which I would guess both of them will probably start pushing these Strago checks.
Oh, we have Burning House to do still.
Yeah, because they just got Strago. So Strago's checks are the Burning House, which has a lot of fixed encounters and isn't fantastic. It is the Fanatics Tower, where you can only use magic, which interestingly might They are both relying on physical offense, so it's not great, but they, of course, all have plenty of magic already learned, so that should be fine, but less than ideal. And then the RNG of the coral pickup for Ebbett's Rock, where you have to collect 22 pieces of coral, and it's semi-randomized how long that takes. I believe the RNG for that is seeded the same way Monster RNG is, so both runners will take the same amount of time in Ebbett's Rock, but it can still feel like it takes forever.
Yes, it can. And also, I'm sure by now that these runners both have Berserk by now. So that's another way to get through Fanatic's Tower as well. Just use Berserk on these characters and let them do their damage. Because with Berserk, they'll only hit the bosses / enemies, but it's unlike Muddle. Alright, and here's Atma. We have tons of money for sure. Have both runners done Zen Thief? I know. I'm pretty
Yes,
sure
they have.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's something they both went to Burning House and just bought it there in the World of Rune Zen when you were already there doing Saban's check.
I kind of figured they did, but I didn't remember Hefe checking it. I remember seeing Nobody War doing it.
Yeah, and one thing to note here, if you see Realm walking around at the bottom of the tower, this check, Fanatic's Tower, because it's a long check, there's roughly 9 million staircases here. And then also, because you can't use magic, this is kind of a disliked check. So it is guaranteed to be some kind of progression, a character or an Esper. And you can see at the bottom, if it's a character, it will be the character walking there. If it is an Esper, you will just see the Ghost Magitech sprite walking around there. There is also a dragon here, which we will see Nobody War take, and then you're guaranteed a high tier item as well at the top, just to really incentivize this check because it is so disliked.
I really like this check. It's a great check. I use this at the end a lot, mainly if I'm trying to get checks in order to get like Kefka's Tower or KT skip or something like that. But I think it's really good because you get a high tier item at the top. You can catch that dragon, and sometimes get two high tier items such as Force Shield or Magus Rod, and get an extra item out of that as well.
Well, yeah, if you're
It
taking
makes
the
my
dragon,
day.
basically you get 2 high tier items, one from the dragon, one from the chest at the top, and you get guaranteed progression. The problem, though, is just that you're required to use magic. So, depending on what you found thus far in the seed or how you've built your party, it can sometimes be kind of a pain. And Hefe running through, managing to knock out, push Realm out of the way in a hurry. Be like, hey, I'll come back down, help you up. You can join the party afterwards. That nice little wire move. It's very slight time save there, but you can do all sorts of little time saves like that with wire move if you practice it and know what you're looking for.
Fanatics can also be a really good early game play as far as if you find rods, then go buy some rods up and go up whenever everything's low leveled. It actually runs through pretty fast because you can still use your consumables as well. You just can't use any physical attacks, which is sad. Ooh, that hyperdrive kind of hurts. Luckily, HP is super high on all the characters right now.
Yeah, with the enemies going up to the highest level, up to 70, you will see some abilities that you might see some abilities that you don't normally see.
Well, I wonder if they do have Berserk, or if Hefe is just choosing not to go that route. Because I'm pretty sure if he did Berserk on just Ed alone, Ed would take this dragon out in one turn.
It's possible they just don't have it learned, because Berserk is not something you really go out of your way to learn.
Oh, and all he has as far as cure is cure 2 as well. Ooh, Ragnarok's a good play right now too. It will actually change that dragon to an item.
Will it? I thought bosses are normally immune.
No, I'm pretty sure it works on the dragons. That's the only thing I know it works on.
Either way, it's not like you actually need the item, so can't
Yeah.
blame them for just deciding to just finish off and be done with it. We get another experience egg, just adding to the pile.
Fun Baba, just another tanky guy to run into. Fun Baba's not really scary, but oh, he has a ton of health.
All right, so since we're just gonna see dueling people running down a bunch of stairs to pick up Realm from the bottom here, we'll take some time here just to give a brief reset of the race. So this is the Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide randomizer. It randomizes characters, abilities, espers, basically everything you can randomize in the game can be randomized. Checks are based on the characters you have. For example, if you have Strago, who normally is associated with the Fanatic's Tower, because this is where you pick them up in the vanilla game, Strago is a check here. If you have Strago, you can do this check that they're doing right now. There are a total of, I believe, 62 checks in the game, including dragons, and then all the character-related checks, and then the Atma within Kefka's Tower. So this is a 100% race, so they have to do every single one of those checks. We are currently about 36 or 37 in. I'll get the exact number after I finish my spiel. And so probably another 45 minutes, something like that. And then you go and face the final boss, Kefka. If you are interested in what you see here, our website is ff6worldscollide.com. There is we also have a link to our Discord, and then plenty of resources to help out new players. If you like what you see, definitely be involved. We'd love to have you. And my name is Arusta. My co-commentator today is Numbers.js. We also have Drinks Glue behind the scenes doing the restream, helping us out. So thank you everyone for watching.
Everybody loves RNG Cave. Everybody loves it. I think my biggest complaint about RNG Cave is that the light. I think if it was a full lit room, I wouldn't have as much problem with it. I always seem to be like, what is this room? I can't remember the layouts of the rooms and try to get them memorized. It just drives me crazy, to be honest. But you know, it's a fun part of the game though, because this is a randomizer, and then this is random. So, I guess it's fair.
Yeah, and the one thing to note as well is that you have to get 22 pieces of coral. The chest which accepts coral will eat the coral if you offer it that when you don't have the 22, so that's bad, because then you start over again from 0. However, once you actually get the 22 pieces of coral, the percentage of where you're supposed to go has been modified, so I believe you have like a 50-50 chance once you have the correct number of coral to actually find the chest, so helps you a little bit on that side of the RNG.
If I remember correctly, I don't know if it's a 50-50, but it either sends you to the place where the chest is, the entrance, or the save room. I think it'll send you to one of those three. So if you just keep running into those, you have enough. You basically have enough coral in order to get out.
Yep. Meanwhile, just to provide an update, since I mentioned it earlier, Nobody War, once they finish up this check, will be at 42 of the 64, whereas Hefe is at 41 of the 64 now that Realm is here. So pretty much tied. They've both done very similar things and are pretty much ready. See Hefe setting down with just one party member. So there is Gogo's check in the Zone Eater, which is where you find Gogo in the vanilla game. Oh wow, landing and finding Umaru. So this is the Doomgaze check, which is on one specific tile of the sky. Typically, you can find it like you do in the normal randomizer by just randomly flying into it. You can also, once you have Setzer, you can just tell Setzer, hey, you know how to fly an airship, find me Doomgaze, and he will find it, so you don't have to just fly around.
And that is some nasty fixed encounters. A nasty fixed encounter because of disaster. Well, it looks like it's just going to miss everybody anyway, so. But I definitely run from that fight too. I don't think there's any need for more experience.
Absolutely. And this is where, as I was going to say before Doomgaze randomly interrupted us there, when you go down to one character, you have this engulf here. And so the Zone Eater will engulf your characters and eat them one by one. So you want to cut your party down to one person just to save time so it can go pick you up straight away.
Oh, a bunch of muddled imps. That's rough.
Yeah, fortunately they did not get Terra, who is most powerful character that they have, so find their way through. And I would expect, yeah, they've got some remedies. Meanwhile, Hefe on the left showing why everybody dislikes this check, because those green guys move randomly left to right, and if they run into you, they will throw you into the pit, which, if you're doing this very early at the seed, is not actually a bad thing, because the pit has several chests, and so it's, a nice way to get some equipment early. Anytime after that, it's just like, come on, guys. I'd like to just walk past, please. And Y remove does not knock them out, because they push you off before you can Y remove them.
So correct me if I'm wrong. Did Nobody War his muddled imp use a smoke bomb on one of the brachiosaurs? I'm almost positive that happened. I didn't know that was possible if it did happen.
I don't know. I wasn't paying close enough attention to see. It's possible that they used the smoke bomb before the muddle imp went off, because if you have a command linked, sometimes it will remember the command and use it themselves and just target it differently. But smoke bombs, because they don't really target enemies per se, even when you're muddled, maybe that would be my guess.
I didn't know it could be used on an enemy at all. I figured it would have just missed or something. That was interesting. I didn't know that was a thing. You learn something new every day. I'm gonna have to go back and look at that after we finish this up, because I'm very curious now.
Yeah, and to answer a question in chat about what people need to do to catch up, I mean, really, they are basically tied right now. Both are currently sitting at 34 checks. It looks like Hefe is ahead because he's got more espers and more dragons. But in terms of the actual number of checks, it's 44 versus 44. So I think Hefe has just done a couple more dead checks. Nobody War has hit a couple more checks that are dead. But in terms of the actual amount of stuff they need to do, they are actually pretty much tied.
Yeah, considering the output damage of both parties is pretty much the same. Yeah, so I think it's very much a toss-up right now.
Absolutely. And one thing to note is that even though they have all this damage and all this equipment, the final boss is still not trivial, because there are some instant death mechanics, and even there's some stuff where maybe it won't necessarily kill you, but it can really drag things out. For example, on tier 2, the magical part of it can cast a bunch of time-consuming spells or counter with annoying things. You can get some on tier 3 of the final boss. There's something called Train, which does a bunch of status effects and waste time while you cure them. So there's a bunch of things which don't necessarily, may or may not necessarily threaten you when you're level 72, as they appear to be, but can still waste time and really make the change in a race that's this close.
And that's what Drinks Glue was talking about in chat earlier. Time to start finding ribbons, and the things that you're talking about is why we need ribbons. That way, not muted, not blinded. Also, that way we don't get zombified, muddled, any of that type of stuff. In order to keep these Atma VK users, and they're all using offerings. Because if you notice, Ed is doing almost quad 9s on his swings, and that could very easily take out a party pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I will also just say, in case anyone missed it, yes, Hefe does have a level 80 character, which is far higher than you normally see. And they still have, Hefe still is at 45 checks, so still has, what is that, 18, 17 more checks to do. So Hefe very well might end up with a level 90 character by the end of this, which is higher than you ever see in a normal seed.
Yeah, pretty trivial once you start to get into these levels. Just hold A and go. We are coming up on the 2-hour mark, and it's going to be pretty close into that 2:30 mark. I think that's what is estimated to be between 2:30 and 2:40, if I remember correctly. But so far, that's what it looks like it's going to be.
Yep. Meanwhile, Nobody War showing us what's probably the most annoying check at this part. The auction house check here, which has 2 checks, and it is super annoying because basically it's just random what you end up getting. Or more precisely, the order you get them.
Even an muddled imp cyan was doing, 4,000 on those hits. That can be rough. So, Aroosta, what brought you to Worlds Collide? How'd you find out about it?
So, a couple years ago, I want to say back in 2021 or 2022, Worlds Collide did a showcase on the Games Done Quick channel, which I'm sure pretty much everybody watching this and following speedrunning in any sort of way has heard of. They did a showcase there, and I was like, ooh, that sounds interesting, because I'd done some previous randomizers in the past. And so I was glad to see it was nicely developed. Joined through that, and they had what was then called the Moogle's First Tournament, which was basically a tournament intended for newer players so that you could really get to know the seeds, get to know how things work, and sort of be guided through with a teammate, an experienced runner who would sort of talk you through the seeds. We still have that. If anyone watching this is newer to the game or is seeing this for the first time and wants to join in. In this case, it's now called the Moogle Cup, and so that happens every so often. I don't think there's a set schedule, just whenever there's enough interest to do the same sort of thing where someone will, you'll be in a voice call with the person or with an experienced runner paired up, and they can sort of talk you through things. As well, we also have a VOD review program where if you post and say, hey, I ran this seed, I'd love for an experienced runner to come out and just give me some advice, watch through. People are always happy to do that. As well, there is a beginner's house channel with all sorts of advice. We have a very full wiki page with all sorts of information there. So, if you're new to the game, there's plenty of resources to get involved, all available through the FF6 Worlds Collide website. So now that I'm done with my soliloquy here, That's how I got involved. How did you get involved with the game?
I guess it's been 5 years ago now. I was just cruising around on YouTube. I was already a big fan of A Link to the Past randomizer and the Zelda 1 randomizer, so I played those a lot. And then I just threw in randomizer, and a very I would probably say a very well known member of the community, and I'm gonna throw his name out, Mr. Will Jones. I love the guy, fantastic, does a lot of work with our Archipelago and our Seed Bod. I saw that he was on YouTube. I was like, oh, this looks fun. So I start watching, and I messaged him, and I'm like, where do I go? And he pointed me straight to this, and then I've been hooked ever since. I was very casual with all the other randomizers I did, and this one turned me into a quote unquote a monster, and maybe even a little bit of an addiction. But this is probably one of the smoother randomizers I've ever played. This and everybody. I wouldn't say everybody, but this and Link to the Past randomizer. They're so smooth, and this one it just had me because of the RPG. And this game was such a staple whenever I was a kid. I played this more than any other game that I can remember. So I think I was still playing this game in college, even.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's definitely, like we mentioned, there's a lot of ways to get involved. We are also, of course, if anyone wants to be out here and wants to try their voice or hand at tracking or talking about the game, we're always looking for help there too as well. Meanwhile, while we were talking, Nobody War found Mog, which is what they're doing now. So this is the Lone Wolf check. If you remember the vanilla game, where Lone Wolf, that thief, finds an item in the chest, runs all the way to the north, and then says you can pick between Mog or the item he has, which is a gold hairpin, which is a really, really bad trade. I can't imagine anyone deciding they would rather have a gold hairpin rather than the slam dancing Moogle. But that option is there. In Worlds Collide, you still have to start him up like we saw, then you chase him up there, and then he will again give you the option of between two things. He will tell you what one of them is, and you can see the sprite for the other. However, one thing to note is that you can get both items. You go to, I believe it's the World of Rune Moogle Cave, where you'd get the Moogle Charm or where you'd pick up Mog and the Moogle Charm in the World of Rune in the vanilla game. You can pick up the other item, whichever one you don't pick here.
You are correct on that. It is the World of Ruin. I used to have the next issue with that because I'd be like, I want that item, and then I'd waste so much time running in, World of Balance, and I'm like, it's not. I don't think I've ever seen stats on characters like this before. This is so wild to see how much HP and levels they have. It is just insane.
Absolutely. And we're not going to see we probably won't ever see the actual statistics screen either. But I think they've all been running with, or a lot of them have been running with either Strength +2 or Magic +2 Espers the entire seed. So they are probably rolling with huge stats as well. Base stats.
Oh, I guarantee. Yeah, you're definitely right on that. That's yeah.
And meanwhile, one thing to note here, we mentioned this probably about an hour and a half ago. Hefe ran up and did this Kefka and Arch check early before they got Mog, and I mentioned at the time that I didn't love the routing, and this is why, because Nobody War was able to do that Mog check, run up here, do the Mog check, turn around, beat this, and then he will be teleported down to where the other Mog check is. For Hefe, now that they've got Mog, or once they do, they will have to run up here again, make this long walk up just for Mog. So a little bit of minor time save here by Nobody War, just nice routing combining those two checks.
Well, considering that they're so close in check count, that actually could make a big difference. Because I think they were basically even, weren't they?
Yeah, so right now, Nobody War is sitting at 50 checks right now while fighting this endless line of Lunarises. Meanwhile, Hefe is at 49 checks right now. So both these checks are probably going to finish up about the same time. And so it's going to be Nobody War has a very slight advantage. We'll be at 51 versus Hefe's 50.
Yeah, so that could, pose to show that he's going a little bit faster, or it could help him, uh, be a little bit ahead in the seed just because of more efficient routing. So, let's see here. Our next character. Well, we're about to find here shortly who our next character is. I think.
Yeah, at this point, it's got to be either. It would be on Nobody War's side. We have not seen. If it was a character, we would have already seen it. So this isn't a character, but it might be at the next Mog check, which this is the Moogle defense that they're going to get basically teleported right to. And at this point, it has to be either Celis or Setzer, and then whichever one it is will lead to the other. It is worth noting that of the Celis and Setzer checks, the biggest Celis check is the 3-part check of the Magicite Factory, which both people have already done via wire remove. And then of the Setzer checks, one of the Setzer checks is the Search the Skies Doomgaze spot, which both people have accidentally run into. So fewer checks remaining than you might expect.
And we have Celis at the Moogle defense. So we've got the checks that we have left, I believe, on Nobody's War is just. I think he's finished up all the other checks, correct? All he has is Setzer and Basement Prisoner. So 1, 2, 3. There's only 3 checks left, if I'm counting right.
So on Nobody War's side, they have not yet done the Umaru checks, the Tritok and Umaru spot. They have they're doing this Mog check here, and then they have the Celis and Setzer checks. As well, there are 2 dragons in Kefka's Tower and and what we call Toilet Atma, because no one really loves doing it, in Kefka's Tower. And those, of course, will be the last thing, because you just do it in Kefka's Tower when you're already walking in there.
Oh, Nobody War also has Owsers to do still. Wait, why is it not showing up? That's where Mog was.
I think Nobody War is manually updating their tracker on their side, so I think there are a couple things that are missing, but
I was looking at the wrong tracker. I was looking at Hefe's. That's weird. Hefe's is not showing up. I just popped up because he just finished it. That would be why. Anyways, I was looking at the wrong one. That's why. Wow. It's kind of hard because I've got like 5 different screens set up right now. I'm like squinting trying to figure out which one's which.
Yeah. So just to focus on the race here. So we've got, like I mentioned, so Nobody War is at 53 checks right now. And then Hefe is currently sitting at 51 checks. So here's where Hefe is going to follow up with what Nobody War just did, do those 2 Mog checks, pick up their Celis, and then Nobody War here. Oh, Nobody War also has not done the check here with the Go-Go check, which this is also secretly one of the things that might lose you time. Hefe had a fairly decent time with the green guys who throw you off, didn't get thrown off once, but that is very much random and very much can change person to person and even just time to time. So we will see. Nobody War might lose some time here and give Hefe a chance to catch up if keeps getting thrown off by the green guys. But the checks that both characters need to do outside of are the Celeste, 2 of the Celeste checks, Opera House, and then the underground check. There is the 2 Setzer checks, which is the Daryl's Tomb and the one in the one in Kolingen, the free check. And then the Kefka's Tower checks. And then I think both people have 1 or 2 more individual checks to do. I don't think either person has done the second part of the Mog check. So you pick up one here and then you have to pick up the other. So that will require running back into the other side of World of Rune Narsh just to pick up that item there.
And that's another place where Hefe loses some time because he's actually got to walk back down the mountain rather than warping out. He not only did he not combine those checks as you were talking about earlier. We now have it to where after you do Kefka and Arsh, it just warps you back down. So that never helps either.
Yeah. All right. Nobody war here. Looks like they're going into the mountain to do the pick up the free item from the Moogle Cave, like I was just talking about. And this is one of those interesting things you will only see in hundo runs, because generally speaking, even though this item is available, it is very rare you would want to go through this entire walk, which even with the speed up, you can see this is going to take, 45 seconds, even with the fast running. You generally would not do that just for an item, even if you do really want the item. You would just pick up the item in the first place.
Yeah, that's another reason why this hundred run is such a great showcase. I mean, it just shows checks that they're there. We don't do them very often, but doing every single check it just shows everything about this game. For anybody that's dropping in now, be sure to check us out on Final Fantasy VI WorldsCollide.com and roll your own seed. Have a look at it and come join us in on the fun, or even check out our Discord as well. And for anybody that wants to jump in, here you go. This is our Discord. Oh, it didn't work. It didn't work. Why didn't it work? Why did it do that?
Because you're not allowed to drop links in the chat, just a protective thing. It is ff6worldscollide.com has the link to our website. And then from there is a link to the Discord right on the front page.
It didn't work. Oh well. I was trying to. I tried.
Yeah, the bots are sometimes finicky.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Hefe is doing their run to pick up the quick check. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Drinks Clue. Dropping that Discord link there.
Yeah, that's
so
how
Hefe
I normally do it on my seed, or on my stream, so that's I didn't expect that.
Yeah, meanwhile, Hefe picking up their flame shield from the alternate Moogle spot. Going to go run and do those Celeste checks, flipping over the world balance there. As a check update, both runners are currently sitting at 55 checks exactly. Hefe has to do the Celeste checks, the Setzer checks that we've been mentioning, the ones in Kefka's Tower, but otherwise doesn't have anything else. The one thing that Nobody War still has to do is Nobody War still has to do Esper Mountain, which Hefe does not. So that is a couple minutes of difference that could pop up right here at some point.
So before going into Kefka's tower, what would be your thoughts? Like, what's your prep? Your normal prep for going into Kefka's tower? Is there a certain level you like to be at? Certain items? Certain damage output? What's your thoughts on that?
Okay, so first off, for this seed, I'm just going straight to Kefka's tower. You are wildly overleveled, wildly overpowered. There is nothing you could possibly find that will change that, especially when you still have both players still have like 8 or 9 checks to do. They're fine. But in a more general sense, in a more normal seed, my goal is to go in probably between level 40 is the ideal. Anything lower than that is pretty much okay, but 40 is kind of where I want to be. And I just want every character to have a job to at least 3 of my characters to have a job to do. So for example, like some kind of endgame damage. Options there are what you're seeing here, which is the physical damage, swinging good weapons. It could be jump if you've got a jump with a dragon horn and a spear. It could be high powered magic like tier 3 magic or Merton. Or it could be occasionally something like fixed dice. But you just want ideally all of your characters, but at least 3 of them to have a job to do, and then the 4th can be a utility character if you need to. What do you like to make sure you have?
You know, I'm kind of on the same level, but in this one, I would definitely be looking for something to protect against Muddle and Zombie right now. That would be the only 2 things I'd be worried about in this seed. I become fairly focused on. Hopefully, by this point, I have my damage output, but whether it's magic or physical, whatever it may be. The second thing that I become pretty focused on is heals. Whether I'm having to go buy X potions or if I have Cure 3 or even I'm okay with Life 2 as well. But I need something to be able to cure and heal up my party. That's always a big focus for me because I've lost some really good runs just because I didn't have the ability to heal up. I also like to make sure one last check before I go in, especially if I'm going to catch some dragons or something like that. Make sure my espers are where I want them to be. Like if there's a Esper that has Cure 3 on it, learn that real quick, or a Fire 3, especially since, in game I may be running around trying to find some dragons just to get to my levels. But I'm also at the same idea as far as levels with you. I've went in with low levels before, but I had like crazy good offense because I had a strength +2, Esper early, plus Illuminas, just those special seeds, and really, really good defense also. But for the most part, I mean, 35 to 40 is a good place to start. If you're getting the skip, if you don't have the skip, 31, 32, I'm also going in at that level in order to but I also need to catch a dragon or a couple dragons in there if I'm going in at that low level.
Yeah, meanwhile, Nobody War showing off one interesting thing is that Hefe was able to basically fly through all these battles here in the Opera House, these little rats, which in this case I guess are high-level magics, or Whisper / Hazers. Nobody War does not appear to have smoke bombs, which is what really helped Hefe a little bit. So that's going to be a little bit of a time loss here because running away is usually slower than it is to just toss a smoke bomb and get right out of there. And just as an update, Hefe is about to pick up from the basement here. This is going to be check number 59 for them. However, one thing to note is that Nobody War's the sets or checks are very quick. So Nobody War, who is currently at 58. So Nobody War is currently 1 behind where Hefe is, but Nobody War's checks going to have 2 very fast checks. So they are still pretty much exactly tied, more or less.
Wait, doesn't this put Hefe into Kefka's tower though?
Yes.
Dragon.
Yes. Hefe is ready to go to Kefka's tower. Nobody War is not very far behind because the Setzer checks are both very quick. Hefe just really, I think where Hefe took the lead there is just a little bit faster, slightly faster boss kills, but even more importantly, Hefe just had a little bit of better luck in terms of the speed they were able to move through stuff.
So I'm wondering how Hefe's going to do this. Will he backtrack through here to catch the 2 dragons, or will he go?
Absolutely not. I think, I am surprised they're doing the statues. What's the I don't know what the skip requirements are, whether they have multiple skips, because the one thing about the skip is you can only use it once unless you fulfill the conditions multiple times. I would think it would be faster to start with just putting your 2 teams together. Oh, running backwards. Interesting. I would have thought it would have been faster to just go forward, but
I would have thought so too, or either just taking your main party into center and then backtrack to this dragon.
Oh, I mean, I would not. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would bother doing it twice, but yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely new. I've never seen it done like this, so this is definitely new for me.
Yeah, though it is interesting because normally in most seeds, if you already have skip, you are not doing any of this. So, you would just go straight there. Golden Shocker in chat, who's one of the other people who ran this. I don't know if Shocker did it async or something, but saying that that's what they did too is exactly what Hefe is doing. So interesting. This is also a part of the tower that you typically, if you're going to see these, you would see them at the very start of the tower, then you just use skip. So I am actually not 100% sure what the most optimal way to do this is, because people don't do this very often.
No, that's correct. I mean, it's rare, but it was pretty fast to work backwards and grab that dragon real quick. So, I mean, it makes sense. I would have never thought about that. That's why I don't run these hundreds. It shows that Hefe has put some work in on this, because he knew exactly what he was doing whenever it came down to it.
Yeah, it does seem like one of the advantages of going like this is Hefe does not have to switch parties to find switches or anything like that like they would normally need to.
Mm-hmm.
So this might be why it's quicker. Because it does seem like, especially the dragons, were much, much faster this way than they would have been going forward.
Yeah, that's definitely a way to do it. Okay, so
And there's our unlock final Kefka, and thank you for flipping through.
and nobody wore missed auction house 1. He only missed 1 item at auction house. That hurts. Oh man.
Yeah, meanwhile, Hefe fighting Dullahan here, so we have, I mean, at this point, I guess Hefe brought Umaru just for the memes, but shouldn't have any problem outside of that.
So we have some chat going on in the race room, and we had some other runners running this as well. Notice we had Y remove going on the whole time, and you can get out of the last battle at Floating Continent. But considering that was actually a dragon for this seed, and this runner used Y remove on there, it ruined his run. He couldn't complete it, so he soft blocked himself from from the entire run. And that also happened with another runner on Dataluma and that was actually Red Dragon, and you had to have all the dragons in order to finish this run. It's so crazy to watch all this, and you basically have to take every single battle possible. You can't remove yourself out of any of them. So interesting to see all this.
Yeah, and that's interesting too, because the thing is that the dragon spot itself is a check, and then you have to kill the dragons. So not only can you not Y remove there, you can't say, oh, well, I found all these other dragons at normal boss spots. No, you still have to go kill those original spots too.
So that makes for a good reason for why they actually turned these into flags. I mean, it's pretty neat. I would never have thought about some of the stuff. I knew why they were running through. I was like, I wouldn't why remove this, because what if it's this? But I didn't realize that why they did this. But this has actually been very, very interesting how it's all unfolded and how it's come together.
Yeah. And so Nobody War looks like they're going through the tower the normal way. So maybe this is a way we can compare, but I had forgotten that if you go this way, you also have to fight this extra boss. Plus the party switching. I think Hefe's way, now that we've seen it, almost certainly is faster.
This is awful getting frozen right now. He's gonna waste a flame shield. I can't blame him.
I mean, at this point, the flame shield tossed from a level 3 person is not really doing anything.
Well, I really thought he would unfreeze Cyan with it, but that's alright. That was rough. So they're asking if in chat if Hefe saved before this. Even if he didn't, it is highly unlikely he's gonna die in this battle. There's not much that can take him out. I think even if he got hit with Demon's Rage, it might be 2 or 3k of damage at most with the equipment and the level he is.
Yeah, the only problem is just having to wait the 90 seconds and just watch time just roll off.
Yeah, it should be game over after. Well, he may have to do one more. Yeah, he needs one more. Yeah, this will probably take him out. Yep, just a time loss. Yeah, they were saying possibly faster to reset, but in this situation, probably not. It probably would have been about the same, depending on if he saved or not. I'm sure Hefe probably did. Well, maybe not, because he didn't. Oh, there he goes. He goes back to the same spot. I mean, it very well could have been faster. Who knows on that one?
Yeah, I like how Cyan's level 92. People were making jokes in chat when we were talking earlier about what you need to get in here about, you're not really ready until you're level 99. Well, this is about as close as you are ever going to see in a Worlds Collide seed.
Yeah, this is so fun to watch this, actually. I'm actually tickled to see all the levels that we're seeing. Ed's about to do some work too. Wow, maxed out. Well, maxed out HP. He has a VK on. That's why. But that's still a lot of damage for a VK.
Yeah, I mean, and really, I'm sure Edgar's going to take some damage along the way, and it'll be fine.
Oh, it's over after this. I want to see this. This is quad 9s. Poltergeist just made his own death wish. All right. Okay, everybody. Everybody in chat, why don't you throw your guesses in to see how fast this final Kefka is going to take Hefe. Takes 45. We got going right now. We got one.
And we are following Price is Right rules, closest without going over.
1 second. Yes, pretty close.
I appreciate the person going true Price is Right by picking 1 second. Way to go.
Let's see if he gets quaked on this first one.
All right, so just to talk a little bit about what this battle is, so gonna have to talk fast here. So there are 3 parts to this first battle. There is the long hand on the left called Long Arm. That one you want to kill first because it does some annoying abilities and does a 3 shockwaves, which are high damage things if it is killed last. You've got the head, which is weak to fire, and you want to kill that one not last because if that one's the last one killed, it does a quake ability, which does quite a bit of damage. Obviously, at these levels, nothing's going to kill him based on raw damage, but typically you'd want to kill him before the last one. And then you've got the closed fist in front, which has a few annoying abilities, but doesn't do anything which threatens you, so typically that will be the last one you kill. The long arm as well, the one on the left, is vulnerable to instant death. Doom, Raiden, Odin, Break, I believe, X Zone, but when you're doing this much raw physical damage, it's not even worth it. And we're done.
Yeah, it doesn't take much at these levels.
All right, so we're already going to start talking about Tier 2. So Tier 2, the person pointing to the left is called Magic, and so that one casts a bunch of annoying spells. Generally, if you have Mute, you want to mute that quickly. There's the girl in the red dress in the center called Tools, which is vulnerable to instant death. Typically, will instant death that one. There is the blue flexing guy who just does kind of physical damage, ends with what's called 10 hits, which is 10 physical attacks after he's killed. Generally, you're fine with that, especially if you have most of your characters in the back row. And then there's the Tiger Face, which does annoying stuff like Doom Tusk, Zombie, Freeze, etc. So generally, you want to kill the Tiger Face first. You will instant death the girl. You will mute the magic, and then you will kill the blue guy with physical damage. Generally, even with something like this, the instant death is worth doing. Like you see him summoning Raiden there, just because the girl has fairly high health, and then mute is still worth doing because the spells aren't necessarily going to kill you at this level, but they do waste a ton of time. So the mute probably saves you time overall.
Yeah, and not to mention that diffuser it's annoying. It's fairly slow, takes some time, so getting tools out of there just for that reason. All right, we're gonna be out of here pretty quick too. What?
Okay, so I'm seeing a bit of lag on Nobody War's screen. Not sure if they just had some lag or needed to step away for a sec.
Not sure.
Oh, we're seeing confirmation in chat that Nobody War's controller came unplugged. Not a fun thing, but it happens. Meanwhile, they are completed their dragons, and so they are bailing out and going to come back. I assume they're going to come back to the statues. Meanwhile, this level here, so 2 parts here. There is the thing on the left, which we call Girl. She has 9,999 health. She is immune to all sorts of magic, or excuse me, absorbs all elements, so you need some kind of physical. And then there's the one in front, which does 2 calmness attacks, which calmness, 1 to 2 calmness attacks when they're killed, which is an instant death. And so typically in a normal seed, you'll always be looking out for Fenrir, which gives you immunity to physical attacks, Golem, which does the same thing, Phantom, which gives you Vanish status, which kind of works, but can also be removed very easily by accident, or something like a Mirage Vest, or just, roll the dice and pray, hope you evade them, because they are physical attacks can be evaded. Now we're on Final Kefka, and then Final Kefka here, they will almost certainly skip the phase, but the first thing they do is Fallen One, unless you do a bunch of damage up front. If you do enough damage, which they almost certainly will, you can skip that. And then Final Kefka goes into what's called Goner phase, where it looks like he's holding a skull, says the world will end. And then that's when you want to unload with all the highest damage stuff you've got. Again, with the party they've got, you're just going to hold A and watch your characters just beat up Kefka with this 999 like we're seeing.
And we have a
And there's the flash.
time of 2:36:28 for FA. GG's FA. Everybody get their GG's in. I think we're going to get him in here for an interview, see what his thoughts are on this.
And I did not actually see when Hefe entered the thing. Someone should look up and go back in the VOD and see what the timestamp was, because we did not leave the timestamp. So I don't know who won the game. Yeah, it was somewhere around 5 minutes. I just don't know what the exact number is. So we've got Hefe and Nobody War. Nobody War
I know
here.
he officially started tier 2. It was 2:32:12.
On tier 2 or tier 1?
Or I'm sorry, tier 1. That wasn't before he hit. Usually, I don't know. I usually go by whenever they step on the switches. But
Yeah, that's when I go. But
yeah.
Anyways, so we also have Nobody War here is stepping on the switches themselves, and will likely have just as fast of a run here. Nobody War has pretty much all their party members were right around level 80, and has that same hit everything with two-handed Atma weapons and two-handed Valiant knives that Hefe did.
Wow, those numbers so they're just big numbers.
Meanwhile, we are finding out in chat that apparently our tracker, because we are we almost never have this many espers, the tracker apparently does not automatically allow you to click up to 27, which is the total number of espers. So you have to manually enter them. So fun part there, because this is one of those 100% that, like we said, we don't see very often.
Nobody War is opting to get this instant death on the left arm on tier 1. I think at this point, I don't think he needs to, really. He could just start swinging for the fences on this. And we have Hefe in the room now. GG's, Hefe. GG's.
Thank you.
So, what do you think about this run, this Hundo run? I know you've done a lot of these in the past. I know I was telling the chat earlier that you like to do a Hundo every New Year's Eve or New Year's. How is this different from yours, and what was your thought process going into that?
These are actually the same flags that I do run on New Year's, just to kind of get a fresh start, kind of do the whole, make sure I remember everything. Make sure not to remove dragons and things that, could possibly stop you from completing the seed. Things like that.
Yeah, funny you should mention that, because we had 2 other runners who were in the race, not on the restream here, who apparently did the same thing, where they removed 2 of the spots that turned out to be dragons. and so they had to
And
forfeit
ironically
the seed.
enough, that's why dragons are mixed in. So you can't do that. Because I want the Y removed for flexibility as far as getting to checks. I just didn't want it to remove bosses.
I knew at one point you just had the Y remove on because the NPCs just drove you crazy. I remember one time stepping in on one of your seeds, and you're like, I only have it for the NPC.
Yeah, I mean, my hot take and my mention that I've mentioned several times in the feedbacks, I wish there was a Y remove solely for like pointless NPCs, not for breaking logic, not letting you into places, just for like the random townspeople who like to stand on the stairs and you have to just stare there and watch them move.
I agree 100%. I enjoy that more than breaking logic with Y remove. Like if I could just get rid of the NPCs and that's it, I'm perfectly okay with that. But yeah, it was a good run. I got a little trolled with the RNG cave. I think I had more than 22 screens to get 22 pieces of coral because that's my luck. Auction house kind of went slow, and I hate that you have to do those checks, but it's part of the game, so you just got to sit there and deal with it. So I did.
So
Yeah,
what was your?
and that
Go
was
ahead.
actually one of the reasons why nobody wore several minutes behind you. You guys were pretty much neck and neck, but nobody only got one of the items from the auction house and then had to go back for it.
Ouch.
Yeah.
So what was your thought process going into this? What was your game plan?
Game plan is generally, just do checks as fast as I could, and I do that locationally. So if there's a check that's close to another check and I have access to it, go ahead and do it. Don't switch worlds and fly across the world and then, switch back and fly back across the world. Like, just knock them both out at that, one point.
Yeah, that
That
seems like
made the most sense to me.
yeah, that's kind of what we were talking about earlier. Maybe early game for the first one or two characters, just picking a character, getting all those checks done, and then maybe whenever characters started flowing, that you just started grouping checks all together. It seemed to take a while to actually get some characters in there, though.
Yeah, I was surprised at the lack of characters for a while there. I think I was like 3 characters and 9 espers or 10 espers or something, and I was like, okay, I had the EXP egg, so I wasn't too worried about it. I knew that I could build up another character or 10 if I needed to, so it wasn't a big deal. It was just kind of annoying that I was just going, didn't have the options to do other things. I just had to go where I could go.
So, Hefe, tell us. So, what made you want to get in on this mission for Gamers Against Cancer in their marathon that they're having in March?
All right. Just so everybody knows, I was about the time that this marathon was announced, I went to my dermatologist because my wife told me that I had a couple of things that quote unquote don't look right. And she didn't say they look bad and she's not a doctor, so I mean she didn't understand either, but ended up going to the doctor and found out that I had skin cancer. It has since been cut out, but I will always have that. And the fact that this came out right around the time that all that stuff went down was definitely something I wanted to get on board with more so than I already did. I lost my stepfather to cancer 10 years ago. So, I mean, cancer and cancer research has always been a very near and dear cause to my heart. But now then that I have been moderately affected, it definitely means more to me, and I want to help out in any way that I can. And, this may be the best way for me to help out.
Well, nobody war just finished up at 243.53. GG's.
GG, nobody war.
Hey, thank you guys.
Yeah, and thank you very much as well. Hefe, thank you for sharing that. I mean, I think I would be surprised if there's anybody listening to this who has not had some kind of impact to cancer on their life. So that's why, that's why we do this. I think that's why Gamers Against Cancer exists. And I really appreciate, both you and Nobody War being part of this, helping us do this submission. So not to pivot to trivial matters, but what did you think of the Seed Nobody War? How did you enjoy your 100% experience?
Oh, I love it. I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah, it was pretty fun.
It
So
seemed like
one thing I wanted to ask about in terms of the Kefka's Tower routing, Nobody War, you did sort of the standard Kefka's Tower routing where you start at the entrance and go up and hit the dragons and Atma, then bail out for the statues. Hefe, I saw you did it in reverse. So what, Nobody War, I'll start with you. Did you consider any other method, or is it just the way you've always done it?
I kind of wanted to jump into the tower at like an hour 20, actually. Just run the center, but I got sucked into other stuff, so.
Okay, and then Hefe, what made you do it backwards?
Because I can.
Okay, well that's fine.
Yeah, I mean,
fair enough.
honestly, I haven't timed it out to see if it's faster or better or worse or indifferent. Like, I honestly don't know. But it's just kind of ever since I found out that you could do it that way, especially if you just need the dragons, is going all the way back to the Atma spot is a little rough. But I assume it's still faster than killing the ambush robot and going all the way through the bottom.
Yeah, that's kind of what we were debating. And that's the conclusion I think we came to in the booth here, is that saving yourselves all that switching around, having to switch on the extra menuing for the Moogle charms, and then hitting all the switches, etc. It seemed like going in reverse was a little faster. We didn't know you could do that. So we were like, wait, everybody in chat and us here in the booth were like, wait, did Hefe hit the wrong button? Why is it going to the statues? Oh, so I'm glad you showed it off, even if we're not sure if it's faster or not.
Yeah, no problem. Least I could do. We learn something every day, right?
Exactly.
I think I said that about 20 times during this race. It's so fun to see like the entire game run, all the checks run. I didn't know it could happen, but apparently one point when Nobody War was going through Burning House, he used a smoke bomb, got turned into a muddle imp before he could use it, and then he used it on the enemy. I didn't know that could happen.
You and me both there, Patty.
I'm glad it wasn't just
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. That's why we love this game.
Exactly. So, any final words from you two? Actually, real quick, Nobody War. We asked Hefe the same thing. So, what made you want to jump in and get in on this submission, and hopefully we get to enter into this marathon for Gamers Against Cancer?
My story is just a little bit like with dealing with family members. Me and the wife just relocated recently to another country, and one of her parents had just gotten cancer, like in this whole process when we found out we were going to be leaving, and then we left. So my wife spent some time with him, and yeah, he's doing really well now. So. And I've just had other experiences with my family members, other aunts and uncles. So,
Well, either one of our runners, you guys have any final thoughts on this and what you'd like to see from these hundo runs in the future?
All I have to say is, thank you guys for putting this on. Hopefully, we get accepted to the marathon and get to do this again for more people and for a great cause. And just want to thank everybody involved.
Absolutely. And we appreciate both the runners and appreciate everyone for watching. I'm going to go ahead and take us out here. So thank you, everyone, for watching. Big thanks to Hefe01 and Nobody War for running this. Thank you to my co-commentator, Numbers JS, our tracker behind the scenes, Neruliana, and then our restreamer behind the scenes and also doubling as a tracker for parts of it, Drinks Glue. This is the Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide Randomizer, our 100% run as a submittal for Run for Gamers Against Cancer. We really appreciate everyone watching. Really hope everyone has a good rest of your day. As we mentioned several times, if you want to get involved, ff6worldscollide.com. So that's kind of all we have. So thank you, everyone, and have a good rest of your day. Okay, and just in case anyone's watching this live, we are going to go ahead and raid one of the other people of our community, Sigil. They are not doing anything. They are just running a seed on their own, so no spoilers, anything like that. So feel free to follow along and say hi to Sigil when we get there. Thank you, everyone.